Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Kaido was defeated. I went to West Blue to resurrect Big Brother Homelander. Chapter 61. Wong Luffy, what is it? With a violent and disdainful voice, Lule's eyes flickered with wisps of crimson light. He stopped by the fishmen island. Just to get Poseidon Shirahoshi in the bag. After all, with Shirahoshi's body shape, no one can grasp it except him, who is the ancestor. The result is good. Someone was so idiot that they threatened him with the Straw Hat Pirates. He even killed Garp. Is he still afraid of King Luffy? Even if King Luffy enters Renren fruit, Eudemons, and Nika form, there is no use for eggs, and it will only be crushed once. What idiot said that? After hearing this, Neptune felt that he was going crazy, and in his heart he wanted to smash the mermaid guard who spoke to ashes. If you want to die, don't drag on the fishmen island. Threatening him in front of Lule, the unscrupulous ancestor of the sea. Do you despise the existence of the fishmen island, Chi, for too long? Or do you despise yourself living too much? Long time. This guy in front of me has even killed the Straw Hat Luffy's grandfather, Garp. Will he still care about the Straw Hat Luffy? He has no brains. We retreat. Lord Lule is going to kill like crazy. Feeling Lule's undisguised aura of violence, Hancock, Jin and Morgan's expressions suddenly changed, and they hurriedly took a few dozen steps back. They didn't even think. Someone dared to face the threat to the ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule. Well now, Mr. Lule will use his own actions to tell the fishmen island, what is the ancestor of the sea who can do whatever he wants. Scoff, scoff. The next moment, there are almost no signs. A crimson hot gaze burst out from Lule's eyes and stormed towards the mermaid guard who had just spoken. What? The mermaid guard was already frightened. I didn't seem to think that I just said a Straw Hat Luffy has a close relationship with the fishmen island. This caused Lule to be furious, and before he could react, his body was instantly evaporated by the terrifying high temperature of the heat vision, leaving only a burnt smell in the air. And this is just the beginning. Scoff, scoff. After killing a mermaid guard, the terrifying hot eyes swept away towards the other mermaids and Murloc guards in the square. What? No, no, King Neptune, save us, save us. See this scene. The mermaid and the Murloc guards gathered in the Garankad Plaza all made a panicked sound, and even more frightened Crap, paralyzed on the plaza, watching helplessly as the hot eyes hit him. Zizi, Zizi. The voices that were burned by the hot sight and disappeared instantly sounded. I saw those merman and Murloc guards, just like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, without any room for resistance, they were evaporated one by the heat of sight. Of course, there were also fish and mermaid guards who wanted to resist, but, in the face of the extremely terrifying hot gaze, all resistance was useless and they could only watch themselves being killed alive. Finally, in less than a minute, the hundreds of mermaids and Murloc guards who had gathered in Gilancourt Square were wiped out. Not even corpses, and only the smell of charred barbecue in the air proved their existence. Quiet. After Lule put away his hot sight, the whole the fishmen island fell into a silent silence. Many ordinary Murlocs and mermaids have dull eyes. In addition to extreme fear, there is only trembling from the depths of their souls. The scene just now was too scary. Maybe too scared. An ordinary mermaid fell to the ground with a thud, followed by a second, a third. Puff. Puff, puff, like dominoes, ordinary mermaids and Murlocs fell to the ground one after another. They were not stunned by Conqueror's hockey, but by the violent means of Lule, the ancestor of the sea. All dead. They were all killed. And the high-level officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom, such as Neptune, the Minister of the Right, the Minister of Finance, Shaoxing, etc., who were standing in the center of the Garankad Plaza, did not come back to their senses until this time. Has been occupied by endless fear. They never thought that Lule, the ancestor of the sea, said that he would do it if he did it, and he would kill all the guards of the Dragon Palace Kingdom without mercy. What a tyrannical, domineering, unscrupulous. As expected of Mr. Lule. Seeing this scene, Jin and Morgans, who had already withdrawn from the square, looked at each other, and they could see the emotion in their eyes. So handsome. Beside, Hancock's beautiful eyes flickered with adoring eyes, she liked such a domineering man. Even Hancock didn't realize that when he heard Lule say that the Straw Hat Luffy was something, his heart was not fluctuating, and he even wanted to laugh. It's boring, it's too weak. At this time, Lule stretched and glanced at Neptune with red eyes, showing an Azu smile, and said, Neptune, do you have any comments? This, facing Lule's simple eyes. Neptune's eyes flickered with a look of horror, the hairs on his whole body rose, and the cold sweat poured out, as if he was stared at by some terrifying beast. He wanted to retort, but, when I think of Lule's crazy killing scene, I feel a slight shudder in my heart. I am also good for the Dragon Palace Kingdom. Lule thought about it for a while, and then solemnly added, Poseidon Shirahoshi, one of the 3 ancient weapons, you can't grasp it, or let me come, it's good for everyone. Quote. Boom. These 2 sentences, like the straw that broke the camel's back. This made Neptune's heart completely collapse, and he slumped on the ground all of a sudden, looking at Lule as if he were looking at some terrifying devil. I see. The ancestor of the sea. Lule must have known that his daughter would be Poseidon, one of the 3 ancient weapons, more than 40 years ago. Terrified. This is a little creepy. This, and seeing King Neptune paralyzed on the ground in fright. The right minister, the finance minister, Shaoxing and other high-level officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom all wanted to speak, but, with the lessons of the left minister, they could only keep their heads down, and they didn't even dare to breathe. You don't want the Dragon Palace Kingdom to disappear from the sea, do you? At this time, Lule casually added again. Neptune's head roared, and suddenly it went blank. Good. I do not know how long it has been. Neptune slowly came back to his senses, showing an extremely decadent expression, and finally nodded helplessly. In the face of Lule, a man who is more terrifying than a demon, he is really powerless. He can only give in, compromise, give in, and exchange Shirahoshi for the peace and stability of the Dragon Palace Kingdom. He really tried his best. With the compromise of King Neptune. The right minister, the finance minister, Shaoxing and other high-level officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom, who have been tense all the time, finally fell to the ground. To be honest, they really don't want to face the ancestors of the sea like a madman, Lule. Moreover, the world government is now eyeing Shirahoshi. If there is the protection of the ancestors of the sea, then Shirahoshi's life and safety will undoubtedly be guaranteed. Even the Shark Star, Emperor Star, and Rollover Star who dote on Shirahoshi can't deny this, because, in today's sea, perhaps only the ancestor of the sea, Lule can protect one of the 3 ancient weapons Poseidon Shirahoshi. As for the Straw Hat Luffy, I didn't even show up when my grandfather died, so forget it. In a word, they were completely disappointed with the Straw Hat Pirates. As for the assistance of the Straw Hat Pirates to the Ryugu Kingdom, they also paid the Ryugu Kingdom to let the Straw Hat Pirates take all of the stolen treasures away. Wise choice, Lule said indifferently. From now on, the fishmen island will be covered by me. Quote. Now that a decision has been made, Neptune took a deep breath after a moment of slump, regained his strength, and nodded respectfully at Lule. Okay, then I'll go see Shirahoshi first. Swish. With a cracking sound, Lule smiled casually, and his body disappeared in place. Seeing the back of Lule leaving, Hancock stomped her feet with silver teeth, clenching her teeth and puffed out her cheeks slightly. She wanted to follow him to have a look, but when she thought of Lule's character, she gave up. Where is this Lord Lule for Poseidon, one of the 3 ancient weapons? It's obviously Shirahoshi's body, right? Thinking of this, Hancock has a vague sense of crisis in her heart. She believes that her beauty is not inferior to anyone else, but in the face of Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess who claims to be as beautiful as herself, she is also a little unconfident. Haha, another big news. Morgans held the camera phone and said excitedly, the Dragon Palace Kingdom will belong to Lord Lule's power territory from now on. The news spreads, it will cause waves in the sea again. Then I'll just stroll around the Fishmen Island. Jin shook his head a little bored, then glanced at the Fishmen Island like a dream world with great interest, and disappeared in place as soon as his wings moved. King Neptune, are you all right? After Jin and the others had all left, the finance minister hurried forward, supported Neptune, and said something with a concerned expression on his face. Quote. Neptune smiled reluctantly, and then said with a little ease, from now on, no force will dare to run wild on our the Fishmen Island, even marine and pirates come to our the Fishmen Island. Weigh and measure. That's right. The voice did not fall. I saw a female fishman who was smoking with a pipe and trotted over with a serious look, and said in an incredible tone, King Neptune, you really made a wise decision today. Mrs. Shiarly, seeing the person who came, Rollover Star frowned, as if thinking of something, and exclaimed, could it be that you are divination again? Shiarly exhaled a puff of white smoke and said meaningfully, I just made another divination, but found that the future of our the Fishmen Island has changed. I didn't predict the specific reasons, but it must be related to the ancestors of the sea Lule related. When it comes to this, Shiarly has some unbelievable, very longing to say. In the future, all residents of the Fishmen Island can live on the ground and enjoy the endless blue sea, blue sky and sun. Originally, after the Straw Hat Pirates rescued the Fishmen Island, she decided to stop divination, but, seeing that the ancestor of the sea, Lule arrived at the Fishmen Island, she couldn't help divination again. However, the future of the Fishmen Island has changed, it is no longer under the sea, but on the sea. What? Is this true? No. No way. Shiarly's words were like a thunderclap on the ground, causing the right minister, the finance minister, Shaoxing and other high-level officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom to show expressions of horror, even Neptune's widened his water blue. Double pupil. What's the situation? The future the Fishmen Island will be on the sea. If this is the case, then today's decision is undoubtedly correct and wise. After a few seconds, King Neptune hesitated for a moment, but asked in a skeptical tone, Mrs. Shiarly, are you sure? Sure, Shiarly said neatly without hesitation. The last time I predicted that the Fishmen Island would be destroyed by a human wearing a straw hat was just a mistake, this time, I feel it should be true. It is good. Ha ha ha. Neptune looked happy, and he couldn't help laughing out loud, and a wisp of tears flashed in his eyes. His decision is not wrong. As long as the Fishmen Island can really be transferred from the seabed to the sea with the help of the ancestor of the sea, Lule, it will be worth paying any price. Straw Hat Luffy, get out. From now on, the Fishmen Island will not need you. The other side, Princess Shirahoshi, who was playing in the forest of the sea, using observation hockey to sense what's happening at Gilancord Plaza. Especially after sensing that Lule, the ancestor of the sea, mercilessly killed the mermaid and murloc guards of the Dragon Palace Kingdom, she was naturally afraid and timid, so she hurried back and hid in the hard shell tower. This is her original dormitory and her shelter to avoid the pursuit. So, when Lule arrived at the hard shell tower, Shirahoshi has carefully locked the door tightly. However, Shirahoshi doesn't know, facing himself as an ancestor with a perspective eye. It's so big. It feels several times bigger than Hancock's. If you lie on it, it will definitely be. At this time, beyond the hard shell tower, Lule's clairvoyant eyes activated, and he was holding his chest with both hands, carefully observing Shirahoshi who was hiding behind the door. As for whether there is any sense of guilt, of course not. After all, if you have a perspective eye and face a peerless beauty, then you should not look at it. No, everyone is a gentleman, whether you appreciate it or not. The words of beauty are indeed comparable to the Empress. After roughly glancing at Shirahoshi's body, Lule's eyes fell on Shirahoshi's cheeks, and he muttered to himself, but in terms of charm, she is slightly inferior to the Empress. It's probably because of the sweet fruit. If there is no sweet fruit, the Empress and Shirahoshi should be on equal footing, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. Lule's eyes kept flickering, and he was not in a hurry to let Shirahoshi open the door, so he carefully observed Shirahoshi's body. After all, Shirahoshi is a mermaid princess who can communicate with the Sea Kings only every 800 years. The King of the Sea Kings has a huge power that can save countless lives or destroy the world. There must be something special about the body, otherwise what became the Poseidon, one of the three ancient weapons? And with Lule's observation, Shirahoshi, who is hiding in the hard shell tower, is a little confused. Obviously she was hiding well, but she felt that her body seemed to be seen through by the ancestor of the sea outside the door. Impossible. Shirahoshi glanced down at his body, a puzzled expression on his pretty face. She didn't understand something. But, while Shirahoshi was still there in self-doubt, boom, A crisp voice sounded. The hard shell tower trembled, and immediately under Shirahoshi's stunned eyes, there were cracks visible to the naked eye. Boom! When the cracks are full of the hard shell tower, it collapsed with a bang, and a large amount of dust was rolled up. Wow! Ah! 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 Shirahoshi shouted. His huge body shivered and curled up on the ground, looked at Lule in the distance, and said, You don't, I will not be afraid of you. Yes, Lule glanced at Shirahoshi and chuckled, I won't kill you. Really? Shirahoshi blinked his bright blue eyes, and said cautiously, I just sensed that you killed a lot of Ryugu Kingdom's guards. Lule shrugged indifferently and added, Who told them to be disobedient? I'll be obedient. Hearing this sentence, Shirahoshi suddenly felt a shock all over his body, and tears flowed out, saying, I don't want to die yet. I will be very obedient. Can you stop crying? Seeing the crying Shirahoshi, Lule frowned and couldn't help but scolded. Quote. Seems to be frightened. Shirahoshi, who was still crying at first, was stunned for a moment. He could only look at Lule with tears in his eyes, not daring to move. From now on, you are my person, understand? The next moment, Lule didn't bother to talk nonsense, and went straight to the topic. As long as you are obedient, no one in the ocean will dare to bully you, understand? Do not. Upon hearing this, a rare look of firmness appeared on Shirahoshi's pretty cheeks, gritted his teeth and said, I'm still waiting. Laugh. It's not over yet. Lule's eyes burst out with a crimson hot gaze, attacking Shirahoshi's head at a lightning-fast speed. What? Shirahoshi screamed loudly, and his huge body trembled, and this seemed to be a fuse, which instantly attracted the giant sea kings in this sea area. However, none of these sea kings have any action yet. A majestic Conqueror's haki erupted from Lule's body. With his exquisite control of Conqueror's haki, he accurately stunned all the giant sea kings in this sea area across the sea. So much so that people on Mermaid Island hardly feel anything. Feeling that he failed to call sea kings, Shirahoshi's eyes flashed a rare unexpected color. Laugh. Next moment, a wisp of armament haki wrapped around Shirahoshi's right arm, and slammed toward the hot gaze. Puff. Without the roar of imagination, the hot gaze disappeared over Shirahoshi's right fist like a squib. I am most afraid of the sudden silence in the air. Seeing this scene, Shirahoshi's beautiful eyes blinked, stunned for a moment, a sullen look flashed on her cheeks. She was tricked. This hot sight did not have the slightest attack power, but it revealed that she would know armament haki. Fact. Clap, clap. Lule smiled and clapped his hands. Should I call you Poseidon or Shirahoshi? Shirahoshi widened his beautiful eyes, muttered his mouth, looked at Lule with great confusion, and said, When did you find out? How did you find out? Lule raised his brows and said, Your acting skills are so bad that I discovered it early in the morning. Certainly. The real reason. Of course it was Lule who saw Shirahoshi's body with clairvoyant eyes. In addition to the generally very strange powers, there are armament haki and Conqueror's haki. Plus this Shirahoshi seems to have made an agreement with Luffy not to be a crybaby, but he is uncharacteristically crying in front of him. That means Shirahoshi's acting is very good. He knows who to face, what kind of disguise to use. Among them, the weak, pitiful, timid, and helpless are undoubtedly the best ones to pretend, and it can also minimize people's vigilance and stimulate people's desire to protect. Yes, Shirahoshi was silent for a while, then crossed his arms and said, What do you want? What do I think? Lule glanced at Shirahoshi's huge body and asked curiously, When did you fully awaken? World Summit time. Shirahoshi thought for a moment, then said slowly, I sensed the aura of Uranus and I am in the Holy Land Mariajoy and I was completely awakened. I just didn't expect that the sea would have an odd number like you. Even the behind-the-scenes boss of world government, has been shriveled repeatedly. When it comes to this, Shirahoshi's tone was clearly a bit of admiration and wonder. As one of the three ancient weapons, Poseidon, she knows how terrifying I am and Uranus are, but she has no way to take a sea ancestor. Therefore, after exposing the fact of his awakening, Shirahoshi also knows how to choose. Joey Boy is unreliable, he can only choose this ancestor of the sea, Lule. So it is. Lule frowned and said, After I unified Wano-kuni, I discovered the Pluton buried in Wano-kuni. Can you activate it? No way. Shirahoshi shook his head without hesitation, and said, Pluton was severely injured at the beginning, and it may take time to recover and repair. Forget it, let it be buried in the ground forever. I can't activate it when I hear it. Lule didn't bother to ask so much. With his strength, Zhao Wang Zhao Pluton is almost useless. Don't you want to know what happened in the blank 100 years? It was Shirahoshi's turn to be puzzled, and he asked curiously. In no mood, Lule shrugged and said dismissively, no matter what happens, it's none of my business. I just want to be an ancestor who can do whatever he wants. Then do you want to do Poseidon, or Shirahoshi? Perhaps knowing that he was decided, Shirahoshi blinked his eyes, made a decision in his heart, and said amazingly, I can switch at will. Of course Poseidon, with a wave of chakra fluctuations. Lule clapped his hands lightly, and a huge hard shell tower formed of wood appeared on the spot, enveloping Lule and Shirahoshi inside. Have nothing to say. It was Poseidon. What happened next came naturally. Early in the morning, Lule looked at Shirahoshi who was sleeping beside him and breathed a sigh of relief involuntarily. Through yesterday's exchange, he probably understood Shirahoshi's state. Now that Poseidon's abilities are completely awakened, he still can't control it skillfully. Fortunately, the peak motherland template he merged with is unscrupulous to the extent of the crescent moon. Plus using a super expansion jutsu. So, Lule is not false at all. Certainly, Shirahoshi wanted to tell him something about 100 years of blank history. But he was rejected by him for the very simple reason that no matter how shocking secrets the blank 100-year history contained, it was meaningless. Ding. Congrats to host. Congratulations to host, you can do whatever you want without being restrained, and the system will reward you with 2% of the experience. Ding. I hope the host will continue to work hard, follow his heart, be unscrupulous, and do whatever he wants. Next moment, while Lule was still thinking, the crisp sound of the system sounded in my mind. Get stronger again. Feeling a majestic energy pouring into his body, Lule showed a smile of Azu, his eyes moved, and he looked at Shirahoshi who was falling into a deep sleep. Soon, after 5 hours, on the Geelong Court Square in the Dragon Palace Kingdom, Lule, Jin, Morgans, Hancock, King Neptune, Minister of the Right, Minister of Finance, Xiaoxing and other high-level officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom gathered here. It seems that there is a lesson from the past. This time there are no mermen and murlocs nearby. Those ordinary mermen and murlocs are also hiding far away, looking at the square. That's right, after getting Shirahoshi, Lule was about to leave for Wano in New World. 40 years have passed. It took so long after the resurrection. Wano, your true emperor is coming back. Lord Lule, don't forget the agreement between us to transfer the Fishmen Island from the bottom of the sea to the sea. Shirahoshi looked at Lule weakly, and said timidly, I will be obedient at the Fishmen. The island is waiting for you. Understood. Seeing Shirahoshi returning to his timid and fearful appearance, Lule suppressed the urge to laugh and said indifferently, don't worry, I will never forget it. Hanku BJDG, Sister K, you are so beautiful. The next moment, Shirahoshi turned his eyes, looked at the cold and arrogant Empress again, and said enviously, if only I could be as attractive as you. Ah, is that right? Hancock, who was still in deep thought, temporarily suppressed his doubts and said arrogantly, Shirahoshi, you are also very beautiful. All right. In fact, Hancock is still thinking. How did Lord Lule clean up Shirahoshi? After all, Shirahoshi is so big. In terms of beauty, with the blessing of sweet fruits, she does not think that she is inferior to Shirahoshi, and she is vaguely better than Shirahoshi. Really, Shirahoshi showed a happy expression. Shirahoshi, let's go and have a whisper. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed in Hancock's eyes, and he said something cold. What? Shirahoshi glanced carefully at Lule. Go. Lule nodded without changing his face. All right. Shirahoshi followed behind Hancock and hid to the side to whisper. As he spoke, Hancock's eyes kept flicking on Lule and Shirahoshi, and finally, he showed an incredible expression. However, the two women do not know. In Lule's super hearing, the dialogue between them is invisible. Lord Lule, this is a little treat from the Fishmen Island. Seeing Shirahoshi as usual, King Neptune put down the last worry in his heart, took out a big box, and said, I hope you will laugh at it. Good. Lule nodded and ordered. Jin, take the box, let's go to Wano-kuni in New World. Yes, Lord Lule. After hearing this, a flash of excitement flashed across Jin's cheeks, and he took the big box. Morgans, you can act now. The next moment, Lule seemed to have thought of something, and said in a low voice, I want Wano-kuni to riot completely. Lord Lule, it's already ready. Morgans's eyes moved, and he said with a sneer, now Wano-kuni is full of contradictions, as long as there is more fire, it will explode in an instant. Okay, let's go. Hearing that Hancock and Shirahoshi were talking more and more, Lule shook his head and disappeared in place in a flash. On the other side, Hancock had an unbelievable expression on his face. Without any hesitation, he followed in a flash. She never thought that Lord Lule was more pervert than she imagined. Woo. After Lule and others left, Minister Wright, Minister of Finance, Shaxing and other senior officials of the Dragon Palace Kingdom breathed a sigh of relief and carefully wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads. There was no way to face the great pressure of Lule, the ancestor of the sea. I hope the choice of the Fishmen Island is correct. King Neptune showed a look of anticipation. Has the future really changed? A flash of nostalgia flashed in Shirahoshi's eyes. This time, she even got in, she really can't afford to lose again. The next day, early in the morning, about the Fishmen Island's change of flag. The news that Lule became the ancestor of the sea spread all over the sea with the blessing of the news of the world. Boom. The sea, which was still shaking because of Garp the Fist's death, shook violently again. No one would have thought that the Dragon Palace Kingdom, which had just participated in the World Summit, turned around and threw itself into the embrace of the ancestor of the sea, Lule. However, when they thought of the terrifying strength of the ancestor of the sea, Lule, everyone was relieved. To this, the world government and marine are of course furious. But, because of the strength of the ancestors of the sea, and there is no order from the five elders and Lord Yimu, they can only hold back and pretend not to know. I can't bear it, I need to endure it. In addition, of course, there is a big news Morgans drafted by himself, with the headline, Wano-kuni, your ninja god is back. As soon as the news came out, countless eyes focused on Wano-kuni. Everyone knows very well that there will definitely be a big event that will affect the entire sea. The only thing that makes countless people unable to understand is that so many things have happened, and the Straw Hat Pirates, one of the four emperors, seems to have not even a little bit news. At the same time, Holy Land Mariajoy, inside the mighty Hoki's castle in the center of the world government. The five elders looked at the newspapers in their hands, their faces were expressionless, and their hearts were a little numb. They finally understood. After the resurrection, the ancestors of the sea did not do anything for a day, and they felt uncomfortable. After killing Blackbeard, one of the former four emperors, he mercilessly killed Garp, passing through the Fishmen Island and taking the Dragon Palace Kingdom into his pocket. Almost everything can move the entire sea. Neptune is such a piece of shit. The Celestial Dragon's family in the Holy Land is angry again, blaming us for not sending Shirahoshi imprisoned to them during the World Summit. Now it's cheap, Great Ocean ancestors. I have already confirmed with Lord I Am that Shirahoshi, the Mermaid Princess, is Poseidon, one of the legendary three ancient weapons, and possesses enormous power that can save countless lives or destroy the world. Now that the Dragon Palace Kingdom has been captured by Lule, Uranus, one of the three ancient weapons, must have also fallen into his hands. Plus the Pluton buried in the depths of Wano-kuni, Lule, the ancestor of the sea, has virtually mastered two ancient weapons. Accompanied by voices of suffocation and anger, the five elders put down the newspapers in their hands in no particular order, showing extremely helpless expressions. In fact, they also wanted to do something to the ancestors of the Great Ocean who came to ultimate unscrupulously, but the boss, Lord Yimu, did not give any instructions from beginning to end. Even if Shirahoshi was captured by the ancestors of the Great Ocean, Lule, Yimu the adults were still unmoved, which made the five elders endure very hard. I can't bear it, I need to endure it. This, an act of infinite weakness, gave Marine and CP0 some opinions. If it weren't for the remaining power of Lord Yim to destroy a country from the sky, Marine's high level and CPU's high level, plus the celestial dragons of the Holy Land, would have attacked them five elders. What's more, the 5 elders could only bear the pressure from below, and they didn't dare to complain to Lord Yimu at all. Hold on just a little longer. After a while, the 5 elders with the highest status in the 5 elders took a deep breath and said, "The ancestor of the sea, Lule returns to Wano-kuni with such a high profile, something big will definitely happen. Once the opportunity is ripe, Lord Yimu order will be given. That's all it can do for now." "All right, then just wait." The other 5 elders thought for a moment, then nodded silently. "I have endured until now, and I can only continue to endure it. As long as Lord Yimu is here, the sky of the sea will not be turned upside down." New World, a large commercial island, inside a large opera house in the central area. Yuta, who has the first singer of the sea, is using virtual characters to convey her singing voice here. At this time, inside the opera house, with a melodious song after another, countless enthusiastic fans stood up from their chairs and were shouting and cheering wildly at a phantom on the stage. If you look closely, you will find that there are civilians, bounty hunters, pirates, and even marines among these fans. And in a corner of the opera house, the pirates of Red Hair Pirates are here, listening to the song with a look of enjoyment. As the song becomes more and more active, an invisible force enveloped the entire opera house. Then, the bodies of the people in the opera house froze in place, but their spirits had already entered the virtual space, Yuta world. That's right, this is the special ability of Paramesha Sange fruit. And this so-called Yuta is the adopted daughter of the Red Hair Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, and the little princess of the Red Hair Pirates. Yuta, I'm sorry. Feeling that the pirates of Red Hair Pirates were all affected by the special ability of Paramesha Sange fruit, Red Hair Shanks, who was listening to the song and enjoying the song, suddenly opened his eyes, and a ray of doting flashed in his eyes. Color. Yuta, as his adopted daughter, has always appeared as a virtual character. With Paramesha Song Fruit, became the first singer of the sea. And her dream is to hold a concert that attracts the attention of the whole sea and reveal the true colors of Mount Lu for the first time. Now it seems that he can't wait. This time to Wano-kuni. He also doesn't know if the ancestors of the sea will give him face. If he is a little careless, he may not be able to come back, so he plans to leave the Red Hair Pirates here and go to Wano-kuni alone to see if he can use violence to move Momonosuke and others away. Thinking of this, the red-haired Shanks got up slowly and walked out of the opera house. Some things must be done, there is no reason, just as Garp resolutely challenged the ancestors of the sea, this is the dignity and will of being a strong man. After the redhead Shanks left, Beckman opened his eyes slowly, showing a helpless expression, and sighed. He really wanted to tell the redhead not to go to Wano-kuni, but he couldn't say anything. As an old friend for many years, he knew the character and temper of the redhead very well. Now the Straw Hat Pirates can't get in touch. If the redhead Shanks doesn't go, the image of the Straw Hat Pirates collapsed. Moreover, the news they got, Wano-kuni's general, Momonosuke, did not retreat, apparently waiting for Straw Hat Luffy. It's just, the wild ancestors of the sea are not green cows, one of the 3 admiral. Almost 100% will not give you face, Shanks, is it really worth it? At the same time, the various countries on the sea, marine, the giants of the underground dark forces, the Cross Union, the Aokiji pirates and other forces, all turned their attention to Wano-kuni. Obviously everyone wants to know, at such a critical moment, will the new 4 emperors Straw Hat Luffy who defeated Kaido of the Beasts come back at the critical moment to turn the tide and explode wildly, just like defeating the seemingly invincible Kaido at the beginning of the Beasts, defeated the ancestors of the sea, Lule. So that the atmosphere of the sea has become a little dignified. Wano-kuni. Today Wano-kuni has been plunged into turmoil. The eyes of the whole sea are gathered here, and everyone in Wano-kuni knows that Lule, the god of ninjas more than 40 years ago, is coming back. In addition to the original natives, the rest of the pirates, merchants, and bounty hunters who entered Wano-kuni, all fled the island desperately. Even General Wano-kuni, Momonosuke has promised to ensure everyone's safety, and the Straw Hat Pirates, one of the 4 emperors, will return. Wano-kuni, have no egg use. After all, we are not pretending to be idiots and idiots. The Straw Hat Pirates can defeat Kaido of the Beasts, one of the former 4 emperors, but, can they defeat the great ocean ancestor, Lule? It's better to withdraw first. So that Momonosuke, who just planned to open up the country and develop Wano, was foolish. He worked so hard for so many days. But it is not worth a newspaper of the world news, which makes all the hard work of so many days in vain. Of course, it's not only that. In Wano, a large number of civilians, ninjas, samurai, etc. have begun to evacuate the flower capital, and they are the god of ninjas, Lord Lule. Just started. In fact, the position of Lule and the position of General Wano, Momonosuke are almost the same, 5-5. But as the ancestor of the ocean, Lule kept doing things that shook the whole ocean. Many people who were standing in Momonosuke began to shake. They began to flee from the flower capital, especially after Blackbeard, one of the 4 emperors, and Garp the Fist were killed by the great ocean ancestors. There were almost no people who were standing on Momonosuke. So much so that the Kozuki family is struggling in Wano. In addition, because the original Kozuki Sukiyaki stole the fruit of victory of the god of ninja, Lord Lule, everyone began to call the Kozuki family a thief. Invisibly, both General Wano and Momonosuke were affected. Prestige plummeted. Became the existence of rats crossing the street shouting and beating. Wano, the capital of flowers. The flower capital that used to be prosperous in the past is now almost empty. Looking around, the street is full of stagnant doors, and the depression has reached the ultimate, not to mention people, not even a few dogs. At this time, inside the palace in the central area, these commoners are really ungrateful. We overthrew the rule of Kaido of the beasts. They were the beneficiaries, and now they see that the great ocean is about to return. They bite us again, saying we colluded with the Straw Hat Pirates. Kids see the pirates, the heart pirates are the actions of their hearts to be punished. Wolf-eyed wolves are a group of wolves. Without our efforts, the beasts' pirates would have turned Wano into an anarchic pirate empire. General Momonosuke, let's go. Yes, leave Wano, leave this group of white-eyed wolves who turn their faces and don't recognize 770 people. It's really killing people. Lule, the ancestor of the sea, must want to see our jokes. How happy we were at the beginning, how angry and powerless we are now. Accompanied by voices of suffocation and anger. I saw Denjiro, Raizo, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu, Eren, and others all showing indignant expressions, wishing to kill all those ordinary people who were like grass on the wall, and their hatred was relieved. Ah! After hearing these words, Kozuki Sukiyaki smiled bitterly. There is nothing wrong with Wano-kuni's practice of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. After all, the sea is the king of strength and speaks with fists. Therefore, after defeating Kaido of the beasts, the commoners of Wano-kuni can happily support Momonosuke's rise to the throne and become Wano-kuni's general. Now there is a more powerful ancestor of the sea, Lule. They will definitely stand in line with the stronger Lule, instead of standing in line with Momonosuke. Especially after seeing that the ancestors of the Great Ocean were rampant and killed Chigu, Sengoku, Garp, Blackbeard and others, it would be even more impossible to stand in the line of General Momonosuke. After all, any fool knows, with the tyrannical character of Lule, who is the ancestor of the sea, he can do whatever he wants. Once you return to Wano-kuni and find someone standing in line with General Momonosuke, you will definitely die miserably. The wall falls and everyone pushes, which also leads to almost no one in Wano-kuni to support the Kozuki clan, Momonosuke. Why is that? At this time, Momonosuke, who was sitting in the main seat, seemed to have not heard it. His eyes were blank, and he was a little lost. When his mother Kozuki used the fruit power to send him to the future with Kinemon, Raizo, Kanjuro and others 20 years ago, now he has worked hard to get the help of the Straw Hat Pirates, Kid Pirates, Heart the power of the pirates defeated Kaido of the beasts and ascended to the throne of General Wano-kuni. It should have been ambitious, well realized his ideals and ambitions, and not let Luffy, father, mother and others down. Well now, ideals and aspirations have not yet begun, they are already over. The ancestors of the sea, Lule has not yet arrived in Wano-kuni, just relying on public opinion, he has made himself a rat in the street. Feelings of grievance, unhappiness, sadness, powerlessness, pain, etc. constantly passed through Momonosuke's heart. In the end, helpless tears appeared in Momonosuke's eyes. He just wanted to be a Wano-kuni general and defend Wano-kuni well. Why is it so difficult? The ancestor of the sea, Lule, is simply too deceiving. See this scene. Kozuki Hiyori and Yamato, who had not spoken all the time, both lowered their heads. The expression on Kozuki Hiyori's face was disappointed and dejected. As for the filial son, Yamato clenched his fists, and his eyes flashed with dissatisfaction and anger. Light. This ancestor of the sea, Lule, is really too much. Kaido's father will die if he dies. What are you doing back to Wano-kuni? Facts aside, shouldn't Papa Kaido be dead? Luffy, still no contact. It seemed that the more he thought about it, the more angry he became. Yamato's eyes were fixed, and he gritted his teeth. How about we leave Wano-kuni first, and then fight back when the time is right, just like defeating Kaido in the first place. Can't get in touch yet. Kozuki Hiyori widened his eyes and said incredulously, now that so many things are happening in the sea, don't the Straw Hat Pirates have any reaction? No. Yamato also looked helpless and said, the Straw Hat Pirates must have arrived at a place where the outside signal was blocked, so the phone bugs couldn't get through all the time. Is that so? Kozuki Hiyori was instantly heartbroken. The Straw Hat Pirates couldn't get in touch. Facing the menacing ancestor of the sea, Lule, they seemed to have no other choice than to leave Wano-kuni. No, I'm not going. However, just at this time, Wano-kuni's general, Momonosuke clenched the imperial flag that Luffy gave him, and said with a frantic expression, no one can let me leave Wano-kuni, I want to live and die with Wano-kuni. I believe that at a critical moment, a miracle will happen. After saying this, Momonosuke's eyes flashed with a firm look. Over the years, he has experienced too many mortal situations and too many things. Now that he has succeeded, he will no longer be weak and retreat. Even Aramaki, one of Marine's 3 admirals, was forced to retreat to Wano-kuni, and he wanted to see how strong this ancestor of the sea was. It is good. Seeing Momonosuke regrouping, Kozuki Sukiyaki was stunned for a moment, and then he exclaimed excitedly, Momonosuke, since you have already made up your mind, then do your best. Grandpa will accompany you, even if whether it is death, Grandpa will not regret it. This, Denjiro, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, Ain and the others looked at the high-spirited Momonosuke, and immediately lowered their heads in shame. It seems that they were frightened by the power of the ancestors of the great pirates. Are you starting to fear death? Even Momonosuke understood it, but they didn't see it through. It was really a bit ridiculous. We accompany you. The next moment, Denjiro, Raizo, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, Ain and others all showed resolute expressions, and even Kozuki Hiyori Yamato was infected, and they all clenched their fists. Ancestors of the sea, Lule. No matter how strong you are, we will not be intimidated by you. Let the horses come here. Momonosuke stood up abruptly, took a deep breath, and said with murderous intent, the ancestor of the sea, Lule, I will never be afraid of you, nor will I be frightened by you. Wano-kuni, Rabbit Bull Prisoner Quarry. As the people who supported General Momonosuke gathered in the capital of Flowers, they planned to fight against the backwater. In order to please the ancestors of the sea, Lule, who will come to Wano-kuni, some warriors and ninjas of Wano-kuni carefully rescued the remaining pirates of the Beast's pirates who were imprisoned here. At this time, on a clearing, a group of remnants of the Beast's pirates are lying on the ground immortal. One of the 3 disasters, Quinn, Jack, and several members of Fei Lubao are lying in the front. If you look closely, you can find that like Quinn, Jack's body has lost a lot of weight, and his face is extremely pale. There is no blood, just like the life force has been absorbed by others, and it is extremely miserable. It's frustrating to say. Originally, after losing to the coalition formed by the Straw Hat Pirates, Quinn, Jack, and others have already suffered heavy losses, and as a result, they met Oromu, one of the 3 admiral who came to Wano-kuni to pick up the head, and was forcibly tied and pierced by Oromu with the ability of forest fruit to absorb nutrients. This led to a rapid decline in the spirits of the pirates of Beast's pirates. If it weren't for the remaining Beast's pirates, almost all of the pirates were Zone Demon Fruit power, with good vitality and resilience, and they might have been wiped out by the 19th Regiment. But, it's like this, they are also very uncomfortable, they haven't recovered yet, they are still in an extremely weak state, even Quinn and Jack have only recovered a little and can barely speak. Why rescue us? Seeing that someone was rescuing the remaining pirates of Beast's pirates, Quinn stood up reluctantly, and said weakly, could it be? Aren't you, the Orochi UT, not afraid of Momonosuke blaming you? Don't be afraid, Momonosuke can't protect himself now. After hearing this, Fu Sho, who was wearing a purple kimono, said bitterly, "Now Wano-kuni, no, the whole sea has changed again." Quinn frowned inadvertently and said puzzledly, "With the Straw Hat Pirates here, who would dare to help Momono?" After all, Lord Kaido was defeated by Straw Hat Luffy. Having said that, Quinn's tone was obviously a little sad. If Lord Kaido hadn't died, how could they be so miserable, like a lost dog? Master Jin went to West Blue to resurrect Lule, the ancestor of the sea who died more than 40 years ago. Fu Sho had an unbelievable look on his face, and said in a terrified tone, "Now the ancestor of the sea, Lule is going to return to Wano-kuni. The invisible pressure has made it impossible for the Kozuki family to protect themselves, and the capital of flowers has become an empty city. There are only some people who support the Kozuki clan." What? Master Lule was really resurrected? Boom! Quinn exclaimed excitedly, but found that his body was too weak, so he slumped to the ground again, making a crashing sound. But Quinn didn't have any painful expression, but instead showed an excited look. He had once heard Mr. Kaido brag about how awesome the legendary ancestor of the sea was, but he never thought that the last cry of Mr. Kaido before he fell into the underground magma was actually true. Phew. No, tell us what happened to the sea these days. The next moment, Quinn didn't care about his weak body. After taking a deep breath, he said urgently. Fu Sho stroked his thoughts a little, and then said in an unbelievable tone, "This matter still has to start with West Blue." 10 minutes later, Fu Shukai finished the glorious deeds of Lule, the ancestor of the sea. Quiet. The place was silent. Many of the remaining pirates of Beast's pirates who are still a little conscious have their eyes widened. If they are not too weak, they must have been exclaiming and jumping out. Happiness really comes too suddenly. It was thought that after the boss of Kaido of the Beasts was driven into the underground magma, they would be permanently imprisoned until they died of old age. It's good now. Kaido-sama's boss, the ancestor of the sea, Lule is coming to Wano-kuni. Thinking of what happened in the sea these days, tears appeared in the eyes of the remnants of the Beasts pirates who were still a little conscious. They couldn't speak, and they wanted to express their inner excitement. Even the simple-minded and well-developed ship king, Jack, had tears in his eyes. Too difficult. They finally had a chance to get back on their feet and fight. At this time, Quinn, who was lying on the ground, also flashed a ray of joy for the rest of his life on the cheek, and he was not worried at all. Now they only need to wait for the great ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule, to return to Wano-kuni. Then they can stand up again, launch a counterattack against the Kozuki clan, and stomp the Dog Days Momonosuke under their feet. Besides, the great ancestor of the great ocean, Lord Lule, even if Luffy with the straw hat came to Wano-kuni again, he would probably be slapped a few times and die without a place to be buried. Don't worry, I will say something nice for you. After a few seconds, after knowing the cause and effect of everything, Quinn suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said in a happy tone, "You Orochi Yuding Fanjong can get lost and rescue us, which is also a great achievement." Yes, Lord Quinn. After getting the promise he wanted, Fu Sho looked excited, lowered his head and even changed his name. And when he thinks that from onwards, the Orochi Yuding Fanjong can do things under the hands of the god of ninjas, Lule, Fu Shu's heart can't keep calm. Everyone is ninja, they and the god of ninjas, Lule. It is almost the gap between heaven and earth. If I can learn some of Lule's ninjutsu, I'm afraid it will not benefit my life. At the same time, off the coast of Wano-kuni, the super giant elephant who has lived for more than 1,000 years, the elephant owner is caught in a tangle. It doesn't know if it should leave. The resurrection of Lule, the ancestor of the sea, is beyond its expectations. Even the legendary Joey Boy has been laid out for hundreds of years, and it is not easy to wait for the Straw Hat Luffy. It turned out well. 40 years after his death, Jin went to West Blue and resurrected Lule, the ancestor of the sea. People are more angry than people, which makes the elephant master envy, jealous and hate in his heart. However, just when the elephant was still contemplating, as if he had sensed something, the huge body froze on the sea, because, on the sea in the distance, at some point in time, a sea of the news of the world had appeared. Pirate ship. And on the deck of the pirate ship, standing impressively, the ancestors of the sea, Lule, Jin, Morgans, Hancock. Ancestors of the Great Sea, Lule came to Wano-kuni. The next moment, there was a humming sound in the mind of the Elephant Master, and then he fell into a blank space. It never imagined that Lule, the ancestor of the sea, would be so fast. This has already reached the coastal waters of Wano-kuni. How to do? What should I do now? The mind of the elephant is constantly turning, weighing the pros and cons. Finally, thinking of his partner Joey Boy, a ray of determination flashed in the giant eyes of Shangzu. It has lived for thousands of years. It is time to show its worth. Anyway, as long as Joey Boy can be resurrected, he should be able to find a way to resurrect it. Momonosuke, the ancestors of the Great Ocean have come to the coast of Wano-kuni. I hope you can give orders to fight. The next moment, using the voice of all things, the voice of the elephant was in the voice of Momonosuke in the capital of flowers. Sounded in my mind. What? Momonosuke, who was still in the final preparations, looked surprised and stood up from the chair. So fast. The ancestor of the sea, Lule, has already come, and the Elephant Master also asked him to give orders to fight. I remember the last time it seemed to be facing Kaido of the beasts. Elephant Lord passed the words in his mind, saying that he heard the drumbeat of liberation, and also said that Joey Boy was back. Shangzu, do you have confidence? Almost without hesitation, Momonosuke asked silently in his heart. Quote. The Elephant Master returned a sentence neatly. Today's Lule, the general trend has been achieved, and the strength is terrifying to the ultimate, it really has no confidence. Quote. Momonosuke is embarrassed. You have no confidence, and you have to stop the ancestor of the sea, Lule. Isn't this a man's arm being a car over his own strength? Momonosuke, this may be my destiny. The Elephant Master seemed to know what Momonosuke was thinking, and said faintly, I have lived for thousands of years, and I am already a little tired. Now that Joey Boy has returned, I should also be relieved. Okay. Thinking that there was still no news from the Straw Hat Pirates, Momonosuke closed his eyes, and finally gave an order, wanting to use the Elephant Master to delay the time. Moreover, as the Lord lived for thousands of years, even a pig will become a master in cultivation, let alone an unfathomable Elephant Master. What if you win? Momonosuke, let me be your last barrier. Hearing Momonosuke's command, Shangzu's eyes narrowed slightly, his huge body twisted, and he directly blocked the sea area where Lule and others were traveling, and violently stirred a few times. Now that it has decided to act, it will not be merciful. Boom. Following the action of the elephant, the coastal waters of Wano-kuni set off a stormy sea. Huge waves hundreds of meters high swept out in all directions, like a tsunami. They were about to destroy the sky and destroy the earth. In an instant, the horror reached the ultimate. What does the elephant want to do? Like the Lord is intentional. Want to stop us. As the Elephant Master who has never done anything going to fight for Wano-kuni's Momonosuke. At this time, facing the monstrous waves on the pirate ship of the news of the world, Jin and Morgans couldn't help shouting angrily. In fact, they had discovered the Elephant Master standing on the sea long ago, but they did not expect that the Elephant Master who had not done much had actually intercepted the sea area ahead, and with the help of his huge body, stirred this sea area. Is this obviously going to stop them? Are you still going to do it? The corners of Lule's mouth twitched slightly, and he shook his head helplessly. After leaving the Fishmen Island, he deliberately increased the speed of his journey, just to reach Wano-kuni earlier, and now he is all right, and he is all at the door of the house, but he is stopped by a giant elephant. This made him, who didn't want to do it, had to do it. Sage art would style true several thousand hands. The next moment, with a cold voice, an immortal's face appeared on Lule's cheeks, and the whole body's immortal art, Cha Tang, was surging violently, and he patted his hands gently. What's the matter, shameless? Knowing Lao Su's character, and taking the initiative to provoke, then I'm sorry, no matter how long you were a super giant elephant, even the so-called Joey Boy's partner, you have to die for Lao Su. Boom. A deafening roar resounded. Right in front of the sea where the stormy waves were set off violently trembled. Immediately afterwards, countless sturdy woods emerged from the waves of hundreds of meters high, and in the continuous reorganization and growth, a huge Guanyin statue with a height of more than 3,000 meters and 1,000 huge arms was formed, on the sea. That's right, This time it was more than 3,000 meters high. Under normal circumstances, the height of true several thousand hands is determined by the ability and strength of the caster. The stronger your strength, the higher the height you can control. For example, when dealing with Blackbeard last time, Lule simply cast a true several thousand hands with a height of more than 800 meters, and now Shangzu takes the initiative to provoke. I'm sorry, you are very big, Lao Su's true several thousand hands bigger than you. Boom. With the appearance of true several thousand hands more than 3,000 meters high. Under the pressure of the invisible and terrifying force of true several thousand hands, the sea, which was still raging, was abruptly suppressed, so that the sea level was calm. This is so big, is it really big? Facing the true several thousand hands standing in front of him, Hancock covered his mouth in extreme astonishment and let out an exclamation. Can't stop it. It is a huge Guanyin statue more than 3,000 meters high. It is really terrifying. This, Lord Lule is serious. Jin and Morgans also widened their eyes, looking at the giant Avalokitesfera like a giant mountain, a humming sound in their minds, and their hearts began to mourn for the Elephant Lord. It's not good for you to provoke someone, come to provoke the ancestors of the sea, is it okay now? Do it yourself. It's not good for you to provoke someone, come to provoke the ancestors of the sea, is it okay now? Do it yourself. Thinking of this, Jin and Morgans looked at the elephant as if they were looking at a dead elephant. They couldn't tell the situation apart. After living for thousands of years, it was like living on the body of a dog. I'll take you ashore first. At this time, Luo lay on the deck stretched and said calmly, since the elephant master wants to die, then I will fulfill him, return to Wano-kuni and start by destroying the elephant master. Boom. The voice did not fall. A giant arm of true several thousand hands twisted, and then under the unbelievable gazes of Jin, Morgans, and Hancock. The giant wooden palm that was several times larger than the Marine's top warships fell from the sky and easily grasped the pirate ship of the news of the world, lifted it from the sea, and moved towards the inland sea of Wano-kuni. Although Wano-kuni does not have an open coast, there are only cliffs and waterfalls around. But, in front of true several thousand hands, which is more than 3,000 meters high, the cliff waterfall is like a small groove, and Jin and others are placed on the surface of the Wano-kuni inland sea. Boom. The pirate ship of the news of the world smashed into the inland waters of Wano-kuni, making a dull crashing sound. Is this coming to Wano-kuni? Sensing that the pirate ship was shaking violently, Jin, Morgans, and Hancock came to their senses. The whole person is still in a state of daze. As soon as they opened their eyes and closed their eyes, they arrived at Wano-kuni. This speed is really too fast. The same moment, a huge Senju Guanyin statue more than 3,000 meters high suddenly appeared off the coast of Wano-kuni. Many places in Wano-kuni can be seen at a glance with binoculars. If you are closer, you can see thousands of giant arms of the giant Guanyin statue. If you are far away, you can also see a little one standing on the seashore and rushing into the sky. Shadow. Therefore, people in many places in Wano-kuni were also stunned. What's the situation? What is this? Why did it suddenly appear? Some people who were a little closer shook their fearful bodies, and fell directly to the ground, sweating profusely, their eyes filled with fear and fear of the unknown. After being sluggish for a few seconds, a Wano-kuni ninja in the Julie area seemed to recall the newspapers he had read, with excitement in his eyes, and shouted loudly, the god of the ninja world of Wano-kuni, Lord Lule is here. This should be the huge Senju Guanyin statue that is said to have suppressed the 13 top powerhouses in the sea more than 40 years ago. What? This seems to be the iconic ultimate move of Lord Lule, the god of ninja world. Is just too high for this height. And this is like a fuse, which quickly detonated the entire Julie area, and immediately swept the entire Wano-kuni with wildfire. Boom. In an instant, the whole Wano-kuni except the flower capital. All of a sudden it boiled. Many ninjas, civilians, samurai, businessmen, bounty hunters, pirates, etc. all stared at the binoculars in the direction of the giant Guanyin statue, and shouted excitedly. The real emperor of Wano-kuni is coming back. They will be liberated, the thief Kozuki clan will be punished, and the general Wano-kuni, Momonosuke will be overthrown. On that clearing of the rabbit bowl, the remaining pirates of the beast's pirates have been sitting up with the support of the Orochi Yuding Fanjong. They have always had tears, including Quinn and Jack, who are crying at this moment. It's here, it's finally here. The boss of Kaido, the god of ninja is here, the day of the beast's pirates is here. If it wasn't for their physical inconvenience, they would all want to greet him. Now they can only hold binoculars and pay attention, waiting quietly for Mr. Lule to enter Wano-kuni. The other side, the flower capital of Wano-kuni. After giving the order to fight, Momonosuke vaguely felt a little uneasy, as if something bad was about to happen. Result, still haven't made him react. A huge black shadow stood up near the coast of Wano-kuni. At first, because of the distance, even if he picked up a telescope, he didn't know what it was. But Denjiro soon came to report. It is the god of ninja world, Luolei's signature big move, the giant Guanyin statue. I don't know what it does. Clang. To hear the news, Momonosuke took a few steps back with a pale face, and slumped on the chair weakly. Others didn't know it, but he knew it. If it is really the great ancestor of the sea, Kamui, the Elephant Lord may be in danger. The god of ninja world is coming. In the face of Momonosuke's gaffe, Denjiro, Raizo, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu, Eren and others who had already gathered to report to the group to keep warm, didn't care at all, because their hearts had already been shocked, and their cheeks had already been shaken. There was a burst of bitter laughter and helplessness. Finally have to face reality. Is that man coming? Kozuki Sukiyaki took a deep breath and murmured to himself, if there is a cause, there will be an effect. He stole the position of General Wano-kuni, and now he has to pay the price. As the infamous beast's pirates making a comeback. Yamato's expression changed. She doesn't know if her identity as Kaido's daughter still works. If so, she will definitely find a way to persuade the ancestors of the ninja world, Lule. You are so unscrupulous, you can do whatever you want. Crazy killing is not good, it is wrong, it is not popular at all, far less than Kozuki Oden, Straw Hat Luffy. At the same time, while the whole Wano-kuni is boiling, super giant elephant lord, looking at the true several thousand hands that is much taller than himself, he is speechless. It's really because the elephant doesn't show its power. Do you think I'm a sick cat? What are you kidding? Then the height. Am I afraid of you? Now I'm just crawling on the sea, pretending to be an island. You make a giant Guanyin statue more than 3,000 meters high. What is it? Thinking of this, the elephant master no longer kept a low profile. The four legs under the sea suddenly stood upright, and the huge body rose more than 9,000 meters, reaching an astonishing more than 10,000 meters. In short, more than 10,000 meters from the sea to the back of the elephant. Boom! As the tens of thousands of meters high elephant master no longer low-key. Not only this sea area, but even countless people in Wano-kuni fell into a daze. I thought that the huge Guanyin statue of Mr. Lule was big enough. Good guy, a giant elephant with a height of 10,000 meters appeared in the coastal waters of Wano-kuni. Maybe it was too high to see his head. This is going to destroy the rhythm of heaven and earth. At this time, as long as you are not a fool, you will know that Lule, the ancestor of the sea, should have been blocked by the legendary elephant master. For a time, the whole Wano-kuni fell into a depressing atmosphere. On one side is the ancestor Lule, who has been shaking the sea just after being resurrected, and on the other side is the unfathomable person who has lived for almost 1,000 years, Shangzu. This is completely the tip of the needle against maiming. Lule, if you leave, I can pretend that nothing happened. Relying on his body size, Shangzu shook his head with a flick of his head, and scattered the countless clouds around his head. Looking down at Lule, who was already standing on the head of true several thousand hands, he made a very dull voice and said, from now on, in the future, our well water will not make river water. Do you consider yourself tall? Hearing this sentence, Lule did not answer, but raised his head calmly and said in a low voice, 10,000 meters high, I can do it too. Actually, from the very beginning, Luolei's perspective saw the elephant's thighs curled under the sea. But I didn't expect that the elephant master is actually taller than the height. Isn't this what I want to abuse? With Luolei's current strength, true several thousand hands grow to tens of thousands of meters, superior. More importantly, the higher the true several thousand hands is, the more terrifying the explosive power will be. This elephant lord is purely to increase the difficulty for himself. along with the swept away of the celestial magic, Chatara. The true several thousand hands, which were already more than 3,000 meters high, began to vibrate violently again. Under the countless shocked gazes, their height began to gradually increase, reaching an astonishing over 10,000 meters, and they stood opposite the Elephant Master. Certainly, the height is the same. But, Elephant Lord's body is much thinner than true several thousand hands. Looking from a distance, the giant arm of the giant Guanyin statue is already comparable to the elephant trunk's trunk, so that the height of the giant Avalokitesvara is comparable to the size of the Elephant Lord. This, facing the true several thousand hands who had the same height as he thought, the Elephant Master was completely dumbfounded. His green eyes were full of disbelief, and he only felt that his elephant face was swollen bjdg. However, at such a moment, Lule didn't say anything nonsense, his right hand made a slightly punching gesture. On top, become a Buddha. Along with this movement, the true several thousand hands, which had no movement at first, suddenly clenched their fists, and I saw armament hockey, Conqueror's hockey, Shanju Chatara wrapped around their fists, and finally it was like a violent storm, blasted away towards the Elephant Lord directly opposite. Blow me up so hard. In the face of this attack, the elephant owner gritted his teeth slightly, and armament hockey was wrapped around his huge body, and the elephant trunk, which was almost 7,000 meters long, was thrown directly towards those huge arms. Perhaps the force was too great, the air not only burst instantly, but even the space began to tremble slightly. Boom! After a few seconds, the 7,000-meter-long elephant trunk collided with dozens of giant wooden fists of true several thousand hands. There was a roaring sound that pierced the sky and the earth, rolled up a shock wave of extremely terrifying energy, and swept the sea area. Not broken, seeing those giant wooden fists that collided with his trunk, he only paused for a while, and some sawdust exploded, but it didn't explode as he imagined. Shangzu showed a look of shock and disbelief, and wanted to retract its own trunk, using the invincible ivory to launch the second round of attacks. Pity. At the moment when the elephant trunk was about to be retracted, a giant wooden fist opened violently, and the palm that covered the sky and the sun pinched the elephant trunk in his hand. No matter how hard it tried, it didn't have any effect. The giant Guanyin statue remained motionless, and then two giant wooden fists opened, pinching its 4,000 meters at a speed that could not cover the ears. Long ivory. Elephant Lord, I will let you have 3 hands. After grasping the originator and ivory of the elephant owner, Luolei's eyes flickered, and he said with a cold face, "Since you want to court death, then I will fulfill you and consecrate Wano-kuni with your flesh and blood." Swish, swish. After this sentence, the remaining 997 giant wooden fists shrouded towards the giant body of the elephant like a meteor from the sky. No, don't you. The elephant owner couldn't take back his trunk, and the ivory was tightly bound, and he was immediately dumbfounded. He could only watch giant wooden fists attack and fall. Boom, 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 just like a meteorite smashed on the earth. One after another, the roaring sound that shook the sky and the earth continued to resound, and the sound resounded for hundreds of miles around. Perhaps the strength was too strong. With the huge body of the elephant as the center, this sea area began to tremble violently, and the sea was surging with turbulent waves. Even Wano-kuni was trembling frantically, and a crack like a spider web appeared. It continues to spread to all parts of Wano-kuni. Shock. Extremely shocking. In the face of such a terrifying scene, countless people who could see clearly were shocked, and only felt a cold air rushing straight to the soul. After all, can you imagine a giant Senju Avalokitesvara swinging a fist about the size of a meteorite, punching a giant elephant with each punch? As the attacked elephant lord, despite having practiced for thousands of years and also possessing armament hockey bodyguards, but, in the face of the true several thousand hands, which was almost full of firepower, it only lasted for less than a minute, and the huge body appeared. A depression. Why is this so? Pain. It really hurts. The elephant cried out in pain. It wants to retreat, but found that his nose and ivory were tightly grasped. He couldn't retreat at all, he could only let the fists the size of meteorites hit him. What's more, the power of this giant Senju Guanyin statue is too strong, especially with the blessing of armament hockey, Conqueror's hockey, and the unique chakra of ninjas, it can't hold up. Elephant Lord. In the Flower City, watching the Elephant Master being bombarded frantically, Momonosuke, Inulan, and Cat Viper who were holding binoculars all cried out in horror, but they were drowned out by the roaring sound. They never thought that the elephant master who had lived for thousands of years would be beaten so badly by the ancestor of the sea, Lule, and he would have no power to fight back at all. Go to hell. Puff. Suddenly at this time, a giant wooden fist from true several thousand hands bombarded the elephant's back, and the powerful force finally blasted a piece of skin, turning it into countless pieces of flesh and blood and scattered in the sky. Ah, see yourself being broken. Shangzu's pupils contracted violently, screamed in agony, and wanted to struggle. Poochie Pochi. The next moment, a burst of sound rang out. I saw that the elephant lord's body was continuously bombarded by the giant wooden fist, turned into countless pieces of flesh and blood, and scattered all over Wano-kuni, which caused Wano-kuni to rain like a pouring blood, and the air also began to fill with a pungent smell. Bloody smell. Ha ha ha, Joey boy will come back to avenge me one day. Feeling unable to revolving heaven, he shouted like the master broke the jar, the great ocean ancestor, Lule, I. Boom. It's not over yet. A fist like a meteorite was stuffed into the elephant lord's mouth, smashed all the teeth, and then yanked out his tongue, and countless blood was spit out of the elephant lord's mouth as if he didn't want money. What it wants to say. But he found himself unable to speak, because his tongue had been torn off alive. Are you going to die? The elephant master, who was powerless to struggle and could not speak, felt the rapid passing of his life force, and gradually gave up his resistance. In his mind, the beautiful picture of him and Joey Bowie appeared in his mind. Now it's finally dying, maybe a relief and freedom. Boom, boom, a deafening roar sounded. 1 second. 3 seconds. 1 minute. With the passage of time, finally after 3 minutes, the tens of thousands of meters high elephant master completely lost his breath, and the dead can no longer die. And its body has been blown up piece by piece by the fists of true several thousand hands, leaving only a skeleton with a height of 10,000 meters, standing on the sea, proving that the elephant lord once existed. With the elephant lord being killed, the turbulent waves on the sea began to calm down gradually. This sea area also stopped shaking, and in the central area of the battle, a pictographic skeleton with a height of 10,000 meters was standing on the sea. Under the rays of sunlight, it was like a bone art, which made people feel fearful, suffocated for it. Therefore, in this situation, quiet, everyone's demeanor was frozen. The tens of thousands of meters high elephant master was bombarded with flesh and blood, leaving only a pair of bones, which was beyond everyone's expectations. No way, this is an elephant master who has lived for thousands of years, can destroy a fleet without breaking a sweat, and once knocked down the big Kanban Jack of the Beast's pirates with one blow. The result was good, and the firepower was full, revealing his tens of thousands of meters tall body, but it was blown up alive, leaving only a pair of skeletons. Ah, Elephant Lord, that's all. Elephant Lord was bombarded with only bones left. As expected of the legendary god of ninjas, Lord Lule is amazing. These blood-colored rainwater is a great supplement. There is no technology in ruthless work. Don't waste it. This is definitely a gift from Mr. Lule to us. As time passed, until Wano-kuni rained down blood, countless people in Wano-kuni who could see this scene woke up from a dream and exclaimed excitedly and happily. Just started, seeing that the elephant is tens of thousands of meters tall. They still have some vague concerns in their hearts. Well now, the ancestors of the sea, Lule told them with practical actions that the elephant lord who has lived for thousands of years is nothing more than this. Perhaps they were too excited. Many people bathed in the blood-colored rainwater and began to dance, and some even started to drink the bloody water, joking. This is the flesh and blood of the elephant, not to mention the nutritional value, it is just about living. For thousands of years, it was a pure tonic. The fact is also true. Many ordinary people are drinking blood-colored rainwater, but it is still not obvious. But many bounty hunters, samurai, ninjas, pirates, etc. drank the blood water, and they felt like they had eaten something tonic, and the blood in the whole body began to stir. At this time, the most affected are the remaining pirates in the Beast's pirates in the Rabbit Bowl. Facing the pouring blood, they only had half their lives left. After madly sucking the blood, the body that had been absorbed by the wild animal with a lot of energy was recovering at a very fast speed. The feeling is coming. Quinn was bathed in the blood-colored rain, sensing the rapidly recovering body, and when he moved, he turned into a huge brachiosaurus. Roar! With a roar, Quinn, who had transformed into a huge brachiosaurus, raised his head to the sky and let out a long roar, then opened his mouth and drank the rainwater quickly. No doubt, he incarnated into a brachiosaurus just to drink more rainwater from the flesh and blood of the Elephant Lord. Lord Lule was so kind to us, he killed the seemingly awesome Elephant Lord to make up for us. Jack finally had the strength to speak, and let out a crying voice. He, relying on the ship king, Jack the Drow, is convinced by the ancestors of the sea. The next moment, Jack the Drow also entered the mammoth form and began to suck the rainwater in big mouthfuls. For others, this is a great supplement, but for Jack, it is an opportunity to realize his own transformation. The Elephant Lord is a supergiant elephant that has lived for thousands of years. He is the demon fruit power of zone katakana middle. Elephant fruit katakana middle. Ancient species katakana middle. Mammoth form. Both are homologous. Maybe he, Jack the Drow's strength can go to the next level. Speed. We also need to recover quickly. That's right, we're going to the Flower City to see how the Kozuki family was destroyed. Seeing Quinn and Jack's actions, the remaining beasts pirates, after recovering a little, entered their respective zone devil fruit forms in no particular order, trying their best to absorb the rainwater mixed with the flesh and blood of elephants. Flower capital, inside the palace in the central area. As the elephant owner also crushed and killed, Momonosuke put down the telescope, looked at the blood-colored rain, his face was pale, and he couldn't help swallowing. He knew that the ancestors of the sea were very strong, but he didn't think that even the Elephant Master was not an opponent. You must know that when they dealt with Kaido of the Beasts, the Elephant Lord said that Kaido of the Beasts was not worth it. It's good now. If you do it, you will lose your life. Denjiro, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, Eren and the others didn't speak either, they just stared blankly at the blood-colored rain that filled the sky. These were all made of the flesh and blood of the elephant. Cruel. These blood-colored rainwater is a great tonic, should we absorb some of it? At this time, Sukiyaki hesitated for a moment, then said solemnly, since we are going to fight back, we must do our best to improve our strength. Upon hearing this, Denjiro, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, Ain and others all turned their attention to Momonosuke. Fine. Momonosuke's cheeks showed a ferocious expression, suppressing the pain in his heart. He clenched the imperial flag that Luffy gave him in his hands, and nodded bitterly. Things have come to this point. It can only be used as waste, and the strength of the elephant is improved with the help of the flesh and blood of the elephant. It is good. Denjiro, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, Eren and the others heard the words, and without any hesitation, they flew to the open space outside the palace, letting the blood-colored rain pour over their bodies, and carried out the last bit of ascension. They are very clear. Next, it is time to face Lule, the most terrifying and unscrupulous ancestor of the sea. At the same time, in the inland sea of Wano, Hancock looked helplessly at Jin and Morgans, who were bathed in bloody rain, happy like a child. What is the flesh and blood of the Lord? Has she eaten even more supplements at Lord Luole's? Elephant Lord, you still have a little value. At this time, Luole, who was standing on the head of true several thousand hands tens of thousands of meters high, sensed Wano-kuni's changes a little, and nodded with satisfaction. That's right, he did it on purpose. Point 0. Moisten Wano-kuni with the flesh and blood of the elephant, and control the power, leaving the bones of the elephant here as a memorial. Wood-style mystery, the birth of the tree world. Soon, when Wano-kuni's blood-colored rain gradually stopped, Luole's eyes were sure, and he slapped his hands violently while Chatanla was surging. Boom, boom. The next moment, with a deafening roar, the ground of Wano-kuni began to tremble. Immediately afterwards, with the Wano-kuni borderline as the center, many trees quickly grew from the ground. The trees seemed to be uprooted and continued to spread to the interior of Wano-kuni. At this time, if anyone has the eye of God or senses it with observation haki, it will be found that after more than 40 years of development, Wano-kuni, which had a low plant coverage rate, once again appeared one after another, crossing the mountains and rivers, spreading from all directions towards the flower capital. Finally, the flower capital of Wano-kuni is surrounded by countless towering trees. Set off. Feeling that the time was almost up, Lule looked down at the entire Wano and gave a loud command. Boom. This sentence is like a fuse. The whole Wano was boiling, and many ninjas, samurai, and bounty hunters suddenly recovered from the shock of countless towering trees rising from the ground, and without any hesitation, swarmed towards the flower capital. Among them, the remaining pirates of Beast's pirates, such as Quinn and Jack in the Rabbit Bowl, showed their violent eyes and attacked the flower city at a very fast speed. For a time, the capital of flowers has become the target of public criticism. Chapter 71. Flower Capital. On the tower outside the palace. General Wano, Momonosuke, Kozuki Sukiyaki, Yamato, Kazuki Hiyori, Denjiro, Raizo, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu, Ain and others were all standing there, looking straight ahead. There have gathered a large number of civilians, ninjas, samurai, pirates, bounty hunters, etc. Almost all of them are excited. If you look closely, you can also see that many of them did not even change their clothes and trousers, but ran over in their clothes and trousers that had been soaked by blood-red rain, invisibly making the air at the scene filled with wisps of blood. As for what these people are doing, it is of course to watch the fun, to watch the jokes of General Wano Momonosuke, and to watch the jokes of the Kozuki family. Maybe the protagonist hasn't come yet. The crowd gathered more and more not only did not cause confusion, but also lined up orderly. The scene is very harmonious and calm. 770. How could this be? Seeing this scene, Momonosuke, who was standing on the tower, clenched his fists tightly. The expression on his face was very ugly, his heart was aching, and he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. If I remember correctly, when he defeated Kaido of the Beasts, these people also supported him. To celebrate, the lanterns were put up in the sky to celebrate Wano-kuni's new life. Well now, when a more powerful ancestor of the sea, Lule came to Wano-kuni, these people who had surrendered and supported him fell apart in an instant, and completely backstabbed him, resulting in less than 100 people who supported him. It was also at this time that Momonosuke realized that after defeating Kaido of the Beasts, the people of Wano-kuni were not surrendering to him, but to the victor who surrendered. In short, that is, whoever is stronger will surrender to whomever. Fortunately, he thought it was his charisma that played a role, and convinced everyone to support himself as Wano-kuni's general. How could Lule, the ancestor of the sea, be so powerful? Beside him, Kazuki Hiyori seemed to be frightened by the bloody rain, and he still hasn't reacted, and is still in a state of trance. Yamato clenched the mace in his hand, gritted his teeth and said, "No matter who it is, I won't be afraid." More and more people gather. Yes, the ancestor of the sea, Lule is really a murderer and wants to clean up us under the watchful eyes of everyone. Denjiro, Reizang, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu, Eren and the others looked at each other, and they could see the helpless look in their eyes. As things have developed, they have become the ones on the chopping board. Salted fish, let someone slaughter. It depends on whether there is a miracle at the critical moment, just like defeating the impossible Kaido of the Beasts. Look, here comes the pirates of the Beasts' pirates. Sudden, in such a tense time, a ninja seemed to see something, and let out a loud shout, which immediately attracted a large group of people, all looking towards the distance. I saw the pirates of the Beasts' pirates headed by Quinn and Jack, flying one by one from a distance. Almost everyone's cheeks were filled with violent colors, and bursts of monstrous killing intent broke out. That's Kanban, Quinn and Jack. Fuzz Fu, Black Maria and others are among them. It's back, they all seem to be back. Looking at the approaching Beasts' pirates, the people who had already gathered couldn't help but let out a small exclamation. And about 3 minutes later, the pirates of Beasts' pirates headed by Quinn and Jack stood right in front of the city wall and looked at Momonosuke and the others on the city tower with undisguised chills in their eyes. Color. Certainly, since the ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule did not come. The pirates of the Beasts' pirates led by Quinn and Jack did not speak. Even the one-strand Jack the Drill didn't speak, just looked at Momonosuke and the others on the floor. Master Yamato, are you still obsessed? But, just at this time, Quinn, who had regained his fat physique, glanced around, his eyes fell on Yamato, hesitated for a while, and persuaded, "If you can find your way back, we can see that you are the son of Lord Kaido. For the sake of it, I don't care about you." What? After hearing this, Yamato, who was already in anger, raised his brows and said ruthlessly, "You villains really deserve to die. If you knew earlier, you should have killed you to avoid future troubles. When it comes to this, Yamato also took a deep breath and added through gritted teeth, after the announcement of the so-called new Onishima project, Kaido is no longer my father, he is already dead. Enough, shut up. Quinn clenched his fist and shouted loudly, if it wasn't for your fornication with the Straw Hat Pirates, Straw Hat Luffy would have died long ago, and we Beasts Pirates would not have fallen short, and now Lord Kaido is dead, are you satisfied? Satisfied. Yamato showed a smug expression and said, it is my shame to have such a father, and I am most happy when he died. What did you say? Quinn angrily entered the huge Brachiosaurus and screamed in the sky. Do you want to fight? Yamato grinned and said coldly, do you think I'd be afraid of you? Swish. The voice did not fall. With a cracking sound, Yamato's body fell under the city wall in a flash, and he aimed the mace in his hand at Quinn, looking provocative. Good, very good. Quinn, who turned into a Brachiosaurus, his whole body was trembling. He never thought that Lord Kaido's son would be so stubborn, it really was a waste of Lord Kaido's expectations, since that's the case. Quinn, calm down. However, just when Quinn wanted to break out and clean up Yamato fiercely, a calm voice sounded, and Jin was seen flying from a distance at a very fast speed. Next to him were Morgans and Hancock, and at the front was the ancestor of the sea who was walking gracefully. Lule, who seemed to be walking, was faster than Jin and the others. Finally, come, see this scene. Yamato took the lead in reacting and said loudly, the ancestor of the sea, Lule, why are you? Boom. Before he could finish speaking, the voice stopped abruptly. I saw Lule appeared in front of Yamato like a teleportation. A slap slapped Yamato's face. The powerful force made Yamato's eyeballs bulge out. The whole person could not maintain his body. He flew backward all of a sudden, and with a bang, he smashed through the tower, smashing through continuously. After a few walls, it stopped. Quiet. I am most afraid that the air is suddenly quiet. From the appearance of Jin, Morgans, Hancock and others, to the time Yamato was slapped by Lule, in less than a second, many people didn't react before seeing that Yamato had already flown out. So many people at the scene showed dumbfounded expressions. How fast? Observation Haki doesn't perceive it at all. This isn't even as strong as Yamato able to fight back. A few seconds later, Momonosuke, Kozuki, Sukiyaki, Denjiro, Raizo, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu and other talents slowed down and let out a series of unbelievable exclamations. The scene made them a little unbelievable. That's right, they all know that the ancestor of the sea, Lule, is very strong, and killing the Elephant Master is the best proof. But, when they really saw Yamato being thrown out before they even had time to react, it still made their scalps tingle. You must know that when faced with one of the three admirals, Oromu couldn't achieve an instant kill. What? Sir Lule is here. Ha ha ha, Jin, you are finally back. Lord Lule, my 19th Beasts Pirates are ready and waiting for your dispatch at any time. When Momonosuke and others were stunned, Quinn, Jack and other Beasts Pirates almost ignored Yamato who was thrown out, and made a sound of excitement. During this time, it was really not easy for them. After waiting for so long, it was finally the day of the Beasts Pirates. Now Lord Lule arrives. Their inner confidence and self-confidence suddenly filled up. As for the civilians watching the show, ninjas, samurai, bounty hunters, etc., they didn't even dare to breathe, and obviously they haven't recovered from the scene where Yamato was slapped away just now. Okay, you'll be fine. At this time, facing the excited Quinn, Jack and other Beasts Pirates, Jin took a deep breath, stretched out his hand, and said solemnly, you all be quiet, don't disturb Lule's business. Yes. After hearing this, the pirates of Beasts Pirates, such as Quinn, Jack, etc. were all stunned for a moment, and wisely stopped talking. It's still the same as more than 40 years ago, nothing has changed. After slapped Yamato away, Lule's heart was not fluctuating. A sensible voice. If I remember correctly, he killed the ruler who ruled Wano in this place more than 40 years ago, and today he is back after more than 40 years. Lule. Swish. A cracking sound rang out. Yamato held a mace in one hand, and kept covering the right cheek of Linlin, who had been beaten with blood, and flew over aggressively. Anger. Extremely angry. Growing up so big, she has not been slapped by anyone. Even Kaido of the Beasts didn't hit her, not even when he colluded with Straw Hat Luffy. Well now, Lule, the ancestor of the sea, slapped her fiercely when she didn't agree with each other after arriving in the capital of flowers, which made Yamato, who has always been very proud, unable to accept it. So, even if it is slapped in the face, even if she couldn't beat it, she decided to give a good lecture to the ancestors of the sea, Lule. Relying on one's own strength, it is impossible to do whatever you want, without her approval, let alone the approval of Wano-kuni civilians, and will only be cast aside by future generations. Looking at Yamato's hanging look, Lule frowned. He just slapped very casually, still not convinced by this look. Collusion with outsiders to his own father, perhaps only Yamato Takako can do it, and also worship Kozuki Oden. Such mental retardation and garbage, only Damon can do it. Nothing. Little brother Kaido can't educate his own children, so let me, the boss, educate them well. Anyway, talent comes out of the stick. As a strong man, you rely on your own powerful strength. Snapped. Just when Yamato was about to speak again, a clear voice rang out. She didn't see how Lule made his move. She was slapped again on the left cheek, and a severe pain swept through her body. Why? A look of confusion flashed in Yamato's eyes. This time, she was already in a defensive posture, even observation haki pushed to the ultimate, but she still couldn't see that Lule was doing it. Boom. The next moment, a crash resounded. The powerful force made Yamato's body fly upside down again, smashing through the city wall again, and smashed to the ground dozens of meters away, causing a burst of dust. Yamato. Seeing Yamato being slapped again, Momonosuke, who was still in a state of trembling, gritted his teeth, thinking of his commitment to Luffy, and then shouted loudly, "Do it!" After this sentence, there was a surging fighting intent in Momonosuke's eyes. Without any warning, he turned into a peach-colored dragon, suspended above the flower capital, opened the dragon's mouth, and the terrifying power began to condense in mouth. Invisibly makes the air tremble slightly. Maybe you know that Lule is very powerful. The moment Momonosuke made his move, it was a big move that he had just realized. You actually did it first. Lule shook his head, his mind moved, the whole body of chakra surged, and his hands lightly patted, wood stylium yulong technique. Laugh, accompanied by a cracking sound. A gigantic wooden dragon with a long hook nose and thorns all over his body roared out, entangling the giant dragon incarnated by Momonosuke in midair at a speed that could not cover his ears. Immediately after, Momonosuke's heat that was accumulating seemed to have lost its strength and was misfiring. How is it possible, my power? Momonosuke, who was transformed into a peach-colored giant dragon, showed an extremely terrified look. The wooden dragon that wrapped around his body could actually suppress the power in his body, causing him to not even gather heat. Momonosuke, the dragon you incarnated is too strong and must be punished. Seeing Momonosuke being imprisoned by the wooden dragon, Lule's mouth twitched slightly before saying something serious. Momonosuke, the dragon you incarnated is too strong and must be punished. Seeing Momonosuke being imprisoned by the wooden dragon, Lule's mouth twitched slightly before saying something serious. After this sentence, Momonosuke, who was imprisoned by the wooden dragon, screamed in pain and struggled constantly, but found that he could not get rid of the wooden dragon. After some struggles, Momonosuke was going crazy. He never thought that he was just about to breathe out the heat, and he burst out, showing the mighty haki of General Wano-kuni, shocking the audience, but he didn't expect that the little wooden dragon suppressed him. Not reconciled, really very unhappy, especially when he thought that he managed to sit on the position of General Wano-kuni with the help of the Straw Hat Pirates, but was subdued so easily, he became even more angry and violent. However, Momonosuke doesn't know that wooden golem can suppress even 9 tails. Now, after being optimized by Lule according to local conditions, it is still very easy to suppress his little dragon, so that the more Momonosuke struggles, the tighter the lock of the wooden dragon, and the louder his screams. Seeing this scene, countless people at the scene were all stunned, and some even couldn't help rubbing their eyes. What's the situation? What's going on? The giant dragon incarnated by Momonosuke has not even started to move. He was easily imprisoned by the wooden dragon, and let out a series of screams, "This is too fast." What is even more astounding is that after imprisoning Momonosuke, the ancestor of the sea, Lule also said that Momonosuke is really too strong and should be punished. This is completely pretending to beat Momonosuke fiercely face. Too strong. Too much stronger than Aramaki, one of the 3 admirals. What? Are we going to do it? At this time, the most embarrassing ones were Denjiro, Raizo, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, and others. Originally, they wanted to deal with Lule, the ancestor of the ocean, as they did with Aramaki, one of the 3 admirals in Marine. They then launched a general attack. It's good now. Momonosuke was directly pressed to death. When they entered a state of battle, they were not going up, and they were not going up, and they were caught in a dilemma. Why don't you kneel down and admit defeat? After arbitrarily imprisoning Momonosuke, Lule turned his eyes to look at Denjiro, Leizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu and others who were standing on the tower, and finally his dull gaze fell on Kozuki Suki, burnt. Kozuki Sukiyaki. When he unified Wano-kuni, he was so frightened, he even knelt down and begged him to let the Kozuki clan go. Did not expect. It was such a guy who betrayed him first and stole Wano-kuni, which is also the reason why Kaido of the Beasts stationed the Beasts pirates in Wano-kuni, and also the reason why Kaido of the Beasts took revenge on the Kozuki clan. This, facing Lule's unremarkable eyes. Kozuki Sukiyaki, who was already in a tense state, almost froze, as if he was being stared at by something terrifying, his whole body fluttered, and his cheeks flashed with a terrified look. Ruined. It's really over. He also usurped the general position of Wano-kuni after seeing Lule's fall. Did not expect. After more than 40 years, it can still be resurrected. Do you regret it? Kozuki Sukiyaki definitely regrets it, but, after giving him a chance, he may still do the same thing, because the Kozuki family has been the ruler of Wano-kuni since hundreds of years ago. He stole Wano-kuni just to get back what belonged to the Kozuki clan. Sukiyaki, don't you have anything to say? Lule said sarcastically, when I was kneeling and begging me to let the Kozuki family go, why don't you kneel now? Lord Lule. Kozuki Sukiyaki's face was still full of cold sweat, and he opened his mouth to say something, but he didn't say anything. Why, can't you speak? Lule showed a wisp of Azu's smile, her eyes flashing red, and said coldly, it seems that I haven't stimulated you enough. After this sentence, the wooden dragon entangled in Momonosuke began to twist his body again, and wood thorns grew out of his body, and began to pierce into the body of the giant dragon incarnated by Momonosuke one by one. Ah! Ah! A scream rang out. Momonosuke, who had transformed into a giant dragon, let out another painful scream, and the dragon's mouth began to spit out wisps of blood, and the whole body was gradually covered with blood. General Momonosuke. Seeing this scene, Denjiro's eyes were split, and he clenched the samurai sword in his hand, and shouted, Lule, don't you have any? Laugh. Denjiro hasn't finished his words yet. A crimson hot sight burst from bottom to top. Quote. Denjiro's expression changed suddenly, and he subconsciously blocked the samurai sword wrapped around armament haki in front of him, trying to resist this attack. Clang. A crisp voice sounded. The samurai sword wrapped around armament haki shattered, and even Denjiro's head was shot alive, and the red and white things were splashed on the faces of Sukiyaki and others. Maybe Denjiro didn't even think of it until he died. In the face of Huangmu, one of the 3 admiral, they still have the power to resist, but, facing the ancestors of the sea, they have no resistance at all, and they can't die anymore in the blink of an eye. Lord Denjiro was killed in seconds. Seeing Lule suddenly kill Denjiro, the less than 100 people standing on the tower to support Momonosuke panicked. However, they do not know. This is just the beginning. Swish. The next moment, without any sign, Lule's body disappeared in place. Bang, bang, bang. One after another collision sound Jiao came out. I saw some warriors, ninjas and others who supported Momonosuke and the Kozuki clan standing on the castle tower. Before they could react, their bodies were forcibly smashed by Lule, who was in a state of almost 10 times the speed of sound, and turned into a body. A cloud of blood. Don't want. We surrender, resist. Sukiyaki-sama, General Momonosuke, save us. The sudden slaughter frightened those who stood in line with Momonosuke, and subconsciously made a sound of begging for mercy. It's a pity, it's useless. In the end, only Kozuki Sukiyaki, Kozuki Hiyori, Raizo, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, and Ain are left on the tower. As for the rest, they were all knocked out of their bodies. The sudden and merciless bloody killing once again plunged the capital of flowers into a dead silence. Even Momonosuke, who was screaming in the air, was so terrified that he forgot to even make the screams. It doesn't seem to think that ancestors of the Great Sea, Lule said that he would do it without any mercy. He killed less than 10 people who supported the Kozuki clan. The invisible vice admiral was violent, cold, and ruthless. Too violent. Is this the way Lord Lule behaves? It's not soft at all. Lord Lule is too irritable and violent. A few minutes later, the Pirates of the Beasts pirates led by Quinn and Jack reacted in horror, and they were obviously also shocked by Lule's action-oriented style. Kill, they will actually. But the unpredictable and unscrupulous act of Lord Lule, who wanted to kill, still made them a little shocked. Small thing, this is just Lord Lule's routine operation. Seeing that Quinn and the others looked like they had never seen the world before, Jin crossed his arms and said slowly, Lord Lule has always acted like this, you will get used to it when you see it more, don't worry too much. Quinn rubbed her fat cheeks, trying to relax as much as she could. In the past, Mr. Kaido was very pervert, but now Mr. Kaido's boss seems to be more pervert and violent. In a trance, he felt that he was a little out of tune with the two bosses. Lord Lule, so handsome. Jack couldn't help grinning, and he couldn't help but let out a sympathetic voice. That's right, he likes Lord Lule's behavior. Just like when he saw Marine's top warship, he ordered to pull the ship over when he saw Marine's top warship. Gollum, and those commoners, ninjas, samurai, etc. who gathered to watch the play, swallowed their saliva cautiously, their pale faces and trembling bodies proved that their hearts were not peaceful. If they had chosen to stand in line with General Momonosuke, they would surely have died without a burial now. Now I can live to watch the play. Really made a wise choice. Above the fortress, Kozuki Hiyori, who was wearing a splendid kimono, covered his mouth and screamed in horror. Demon, that man is a complete demon and a lunatic. Especially smelling the bloody smell in the air, Kozuki Hiyori only felt the constant buzzing in his mind, and it went blank in an instant, and then leaned against the city wall with a pale face. However, no one noticed Kozuki Hiyori at this point. Whether it was Reizang, Inuarashi, or Kawamatsu, Nin stood on the spot with trembling all over his body. Originally, they thought that they had the courage to face the ancestors of the sea, and that they could overcome all difficulties with firm belief and the spirit of seeing death as home. Now they realize that they are wrong, and they are very wrong. When the strength gap is too large, all resistance is useless. Faith and courage are worthless in the face of absolute strength. Died. They're all dead. At this time, the most collapsed and desperate one was Kozuki's Sukiyaki. His body trembled a few times, and he sat down on the castle tower with his eyes completely blank. Compared with more than 40 years ago, the ancestors of the sea today Lule seems to have become more arbitrary. The number of people who supported the Kozuki clan was less than a single digit. Think about it. BJDG Kozuki Sukiyaki still has some sadness. After so many years of forbearance, incarnation of Tengu Mountain Fei-Che, living in Bionli village as a swordsman, finally looking forward to the defeat of Kaido of the Beasts, but met a more pervert terrifying ancestor of the sea. Are the Kozuki clan really going to die? Do not. The Kozuki family cannot perish. One more rescue. I want to save the Kozuki clan. Boom. The next moment, Kozuki Sukiyaki stumbled up from the ground and stood in front of Lule with one jump, suppressing the fear in his heart, and knelt on the ground tremblingly. I was wrong. Lord Lule, please let the Kozuki clan go. Momonosuke and Kozuki Hiyori are both innocent. If you really want to kill me, kill me. In front of everyone's eyes, Kozuki Sukiyaki didn't want any face or dignity, and immediately began to kowtow to Lule with bitter tears and tears. At this moment, nothing is important, as long as he can survive. See this scene. Lule shook his head expressionlessly and said, it's been over once in over 40 years, so. Kozuki Sukiyaki shouted in panic and said, I have a secret that I didn't even tell the Straw Hat Pirates. I can tell you now, as long as you can let Momonosuke and Hiyori go. When it comes to this, Kozuki Sukiyaki also gritted his teeth and added, "No. Kozuki Hiyori, you don't have to let it go. As the first beauty of our Kozuki family, I will pay tribute to you, as long as you can let Momonosuke go. Grandpa Sukiyaki actually dedicated me to that devil-like man." Hearing these words, Kozuki Hiyori, who had been leaning on the castle tower, showed a heart-wrenching expression, unable to hold it any longer and collapsed on the ground. Sukiyaki-sama, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, and Eren also showed bitter expressions. Sure enough, human nature cannot stand the test. At the critical moment of life and death, Kozuki Sukiyaki is a vivid expression of the ugliness of human nature. Well, as long as General Momonosuke can be released, even their death is worth it. Seeing Kozuki Sukiyaki, who betrayed his own granddaughter so servilely and shamelessly, Momonosuke, who turned into a giant dragon in midair, let out a heart-wrenching scream. Wrong, he was wrong, he shouldn't believe in any Straw Hat Luffy, nor should he believe in any miracles. He thought that if he strengthened his beliefs and ideals, he could conquer everything. Now the ancestor of the sea, Lule, completely destroyed his naive and stupid idea. In the face of absolute power, what he insists on cannot be said to be meaningless, but has no effect at all. To shut up, Kozuki Sukiyaki said frantically. Momonosuke, you remind me that you are the only child of the Kozuki clan, and you must live. Lord Lule, I know how to activate Pluton, one of the 3 ancient weapons. I didn't even tell Robin from the Straw Hat Pirates about this secret. Let's see if you can let Momonosuke go. The next second, Kozuki Sukiyaki almost didn't hesitate, and then said something amazing. Do you know how to activate Pluton? Lule deliberately showed a look of interest. Yes. Seeing Lule's interest, Kozuki Sukiyaki hurriedly said, as long as you let Momonosuke go, I'll tell you right away. Sorry. Lule changed the subject and shrugged. I'm not interested in that Pluton. I am most afraid of the sudden quietness of the air. The happy expression on Kozuki Sukiyaki's face froze immediately, and he looked at Lule with disbelief. How could anyone not be interested in Pluton, one of the 3 ancient weapons? You must know that Pluton is the worst warship in the history of shipbuilding. The super warship built by the capital of 7 waters can destroy an island with one shot. All right now, is anyone still interested? Kozuki Suki stared at Lule's cheeks, trying to find some flaws in his face to deceive him. However, Kozuki Suki was desperate, and Lule's face didn't show any signs from the beginning to the end. The change. ... A cold light flashed in Lule's eyes, and he said softly, it's time to give you a ride. Do not. Kozuki Sukiyaki cried out in desperation, and his kneeling body slumped to the ground. Ha ha ha, Lule, please give me a face and let them go. But, at the critical moment when Lule was about to start, accompanied by a loud laugh, countless dark clouds appeared in Wanokuni's sky, black lightning flashed between the clouds, and an invisible pressure instantly enveloped the entire Wanokuni. Sensing this Conqueror's haki, Momonosuke, Kozuki Sukiyaki, Reizang, Inuarashi, Kawamatsu, and Anin all looked happy. At a critical moment, someone came to save them. If you guessed correctly, it should be one of the 4 emperors, Redhead Shanks. It was Shanks who assisted them in defeating the Green Bull, one of Marine's 3 admirals, and now he's here to help them. More importantly, for a long time, as long as the red-haired Shanks spoke, basically others would give him a face, and their Kozuki clan would be saved. This Conqueror's haki seems to be the red-haired Shanks of one of the 4 emperors. That's right, it's red hair. Could it be that the redhead is also participating in this muddy water? On the other side, Jin, Quinn, Jack and other pirates from Beast's Pirates were stunned for a moment, and then they all showed expressions of surprise, as if they didn't expect that the red-haired Shanks would actually make a fortune for the Kozuki family. There's big news coming up. Morgans looked overjoyed, and the hand holding the camcorder trembled with excitement. I will witness the fall of another 4 emperors again. Hancock stretched his waist gracefully, a look of anticipation flashed in his beautiful eyes. Finally can't help but speak. At this time, there was no unexpected color on Lule's cheeks, a crimson light flashed in his eyes, and he looked at Yugong Sukiyaki. In fact, after killing the Elephant Master, his super perception discovered the existence of the red-haired Shanks. After so long, I can't stand it anymore. Give you a face. Who do you think you are? What kind of thing? It's really a face. Since you want to participate in the Wano-kuni thing, you have to be prepared to be blown up. Laugh. A cracking sound rang out. Moonlight Sukiyaki's head was blown alive by the hot sight. How is this possible? At the last moment of death. Moonlight Sukiyaki couldn't figure out why Lule didn't give face to the red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors. Boom. This is the sound of Kozuki Sukiyaki's body falling to the ground. Seeing this scene, the faces of everyone who was still immersed in the red-haired Shanks Conqueror's haki all froze. What's the situation? The red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, only said to give him a face, and a second later, the ancestor of the sea, Lule killed Kozuki Sukiyaki neatly. This is not a problem of not giving face, but in full view, the red-haired Shanks slapped hard in the face. Ah, Sukiyaki-sama is dead. How is that possible, without giving the redhead Shanks face? After a few seconds, Lei Zhang, Inu Lan, He Song, and Ren were all stupefied, the joy that had just froze on their cheeks, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. They never thought that the red-haired Shanks, who always likes to let others give him a face, seems to have no face in front of Lule, the ancestor of the sea. He didn't give him any face at all. Why, Grandpa Sukiyaki was killed just like that. In midair, Momonosuke Longyan, who was imprisoned by the wooden dragon with blood all over his body, stared, and the little hope that had just sprouted in his heart was extinguished again. Because he suddenly realized that the ancestors of the sea didn't even give the red-haired Shanks face, so he must still be dead, unless the red-haired Shanks can defeat Lule. But, is this possible? What's even more tragic is that Grandpa Shoxi Burn died in front of him, but he couldn't do anything, he could only watch helplessly. In a trance, Momonosuke vaguely felt that he was a waste and garbage, that living was a waste of food and air, and it was better to die. Great, redhead Shanks is a shit. Give me more face. Red-haired Shanks doesn't deserve to let Lord Lule give him a face. After Jin, Quinn, Jack and other beasts pirates reacted, they unanimously exclaimed in relief. The redhead Shanks, relying on the fact that he has the strongest conqueror's haki, he always asks others to give him a face. Some time ago, he also asked Araki to give him a face and leave Wano-kuni. I'm sorry now, the ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule, even if Pluton, one of the 3 ancient weapons, did not even care about Pluton, would he still give you face? Hyaki. At the same time, swish, a cracking sound rang out. I saw an afterimage flying from a distance. Immediately afterwards, the red-haired Shanks wearing a long black cloak appeared on the city wall of the Flower City, looking at Lule with a complicated look. This was the first time he met the ancestor of the sea, Lule. There should be one more time, and that is on the island of Kamiya. Actually, after Lule killed the Elephant Lord, he had already arrived at Wano-kuni. Looking at the 10,000-meter-high skeleton of the Elephant Lord, in addition to being shocked and horrified, Shanks felt his scalp tingle for a while. Therefore, even though he had already made up his mind and arranged the funeral, he couldn't help but fall into a deep tangle in his heart. In the end, facing Lule, who was becoming more and more unscrupulous, he still chose to stand up. A lot of things must be done by someone, stick to his inner ideals and ambitions, and he has no regrets. So, take the initiative to ask Lule to give him a face. The result was also very unsatisfactory. As he expected, Lule, the ancestor of the sea, did not give him any face at all, and mercilessly killed Kozuki Sukiyaki with a headshot. At the same time, with the arrival of the redhead Shanks, the scene once again fell into a strange atmosphere. No one spoke, which made the atmosphere extremely solemn. After all, Lule, the ancestor of the Great Ocean, on one side, and Shanks, the red-haired one of the 4 emperors on the other, are all famous characters of the Great Ocean. Alas, you should have spotted me long ago. After a while, the red-haired Shanks sighed and said meaningfully, I just did that just to force me to show up. That's right, Lule nodded slightly, and said indifferently, if you don't show up, I'll pretend I don't know, it's a pity. Some things have no choice. The red-haired Shanks shrugged and said with awe, it just so happens that I also want to see the strength of the ancestors of the sea. Quote. In fact, you've already seen it. Lule's eyes moved, and he said in a low voice, when you were a baby on the island of God Valley, you have already witnessed a history. The red-haired Shanks showed a side expression, and said with some emotion, "Who would have thought that the baby would have the courage to face the ancestors of the great pirate today, more than 40 years later?" Up to now, red-haired Shanks already knew what the giant Wanyan in his head looked like. It was in infancy, the psychological shadow that the ancestors of the sea left him that touched his soul. Now he finally has the opportunity to end everything. Thinking of this, in the eyes of the red-haired Shanks, there was a trace of crazy fighting intent. Boom! The next moment, an invisible shock wave of momentum swept out in all directions at a speed that could not be hidden from the ears. The entire Wano-kuni air began to tremble, and the cloud-covered sky surged wildly in an instant. Looking up at the sky, you could see countless black thunder and lightning constantly interweaving in the clouds. Certainly, as recognized as the strongest Conqueror's Haki ability. This Conqueror's Haki seems to be a big battle, but it did not affect anyone else, but directly locked Lule alone. Perhaps it was because he felt that the volume was almost there. A few seconds later, the red-haired Shanks moved, carrying the Conqueror's Haki that enveloped the entire Wano-kuni, and it hit Lule with a bang. Good Conqueror's Haki. As expected of the man with the strongest Haki, the entire Wano-kuni has been affected. If I'm not mistaken, the redhead Shanks' control of Conqueror's Haki is unparalleled. At this time, looking at the countless black lightning in the sky, whether it is Jin, Jack, Quinn and other beasts pirates, or Momonosuke, Raizo, Anuarashi, Kawamatsu, Nin, and those watching the show, the expressions of the people suddenly condensed, and they didn't even dare to breathe. No way. Really, redhead Shanks' Conqueror's Haki is too strong. The king rules the world, and all things surrender. However, as the main target of being suppressed by Conqueror's Haki, Lule just stood there, unaffected by the slightest tremor in his clothes. "Shanks, do you know what Overlord Kill is?" Perceiving this Conqueror's Haki, Lule's mouth curled slightly and said, "Your Conqueror's Haki is indeed very strong. It has surpassed the 13 top experts in the sea more than 40 years ago, but doesn't have any effect in the face of Overlord killing." Kill Overlord. The red-haired Shanks looked slightly changed. Immediately after, he saw a scene that he will never forget in his life. Kill Overlord. The red-haired Shanks looked slightly changed. Immediately after, he saw a scene that he will never forget in his life. Boom. There are almost no signs. An even more earth-shattering Conqueror's Haki burst out from Lule's body, rushing straight into the sky, directly dispelling the countless dark clouds in the sky, revealing a clear sky. Immediately after, centered on the capital of flowers, the invisible horror of Conqueror's Haki spread and enveloped the entire Wano-kuni in the blink of an eye. Without the imagined collision of Conqueror's Haki, nor the imaginary scene of flying sand and rocks, Wano-kuni kept shaking. Lule's Conqueror's Haki directly formed an invisible aura of Conqueror's Haki in Wano-kuni. That's right, it is an invisible aura that belongs only to Haki. People who don't 773 are not targeted, they don't feel anything, they just feel as if they are enveloped by something invisible. But the red-haired Shanks clearly sensed that after this Conqueror's Haki's aura was formed, his own Conqueror's Haki began to dissipate uncontrollably, as if in this Conqueror's Haki's aura, the ancestors of the sea, Lule is the real king. How is this possible? It doesn't seem to be the territory of the tyrant as Rayleigh thinks it is. The red-haired Shanks showed a horrified expression, and he wanted to activate the Conqueror's Haki as soon as his mind moved, but unfortunately, no matter how he urged it, it couldn't change the fact that his Conqueror's Haki began to gradually dissipate. 1 second. 3 seconds, 10 seconds, as time goes by. In about 20 seconds, the strongest Conqueror's Haki of the red-haired Shanks was completely disintegrated and disappeared without a trace. To deal with Lule, my knowledge and killing are completely useless. Feeling that his Conqueror's Haki was disintegrated, the red-haired Shanks froze for a while before showing a bitter expression. After all, he was too proud. "I think my Conqueror's Haki is very good, and I have developed the out-of-print knowledge killer in the sea. I think I can compete with Lule's Conqueror's Haki. Who knows that I think too much." Today, more than 40 years later, the sea ancestors' Conqueror's Haki has reached a level of invincibility. As for Lule's Overlord killing, before he came, he spoke to Rayleigh. Phone bug. Rayleigh warned him. He also told Lule that the Overlord killing was very terrifying, and the Conqueror's haki that erupted among the 13 top powerhouses in the sea were all defeated by one blow. At that time, he didn't take it to heart, thinking that it was just an ordinary tyrant's territory, nothing to worry about. After all, he was the man with the strongest Conqueror's haki, and he could lose everything else, but Conqueror's haki absolutely couldn't lose. Now he has lost in a mess, and his face is slapped. Shanks, this is just the beginning. At this time, Luolei's face couldn't help showing a wisp of Azu's smile, and said softly, "Come and try my Conqueror's haki, how about a look?" Quote. Boom. The voice did not fall. The Overlord killing, which enveloped Wano-kuni, carried the overwhelming aura of coercion and did not affect anyone, and went to suppress Shanks with such a bang. Clap, clap. This is the sound of cracks in the air. In front of everyone's eyes, when the invisible Overlord killed Shanks, the red-haired Shanks was the center of the air, and the air began to crack. What a powerful aura. No. It's not right, it's not just the momentum, it seems to be mixed with a terrifying spiritual attack. The red-haired Shanks was stunned, his eyes filled with unbelievable expressions, looking at Luolei, like he was looking at some kind of monster. What's the situation? Most people think that momentum and spiritual power are the same. But, at their level, of course they know that momentum and spiritual power are completely two kinds of power. How can Conqueror's haki be mixed with spiritual attacks? How powerful is the spiritual power of this ancestor of the sea? You must know that even if he is stronger than him, he can only develop knowledge and kill. Even if his spirit is mixed with Conqueror's haki, it is useless. It is not as direct as Conqueror's haki's imposing power. Unless that person's spiritual power is extremely powerful, it is possible to achieve the unity of heaven and man with spiritual power and momentum. It's good now. Luolei actually combined his own spiritual power with the momentum of Conqueror's haki. The superposition of the two is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. So, under such circumstances, the red-haired Shanks persisted for less than a minute, and a buzzing sound began to appear in his mind, and his mental strength was also severely affected. PFF'd. Finally, after about 3 minutes, the red-haired Shanks' expression changed suddenly, his heart was shocked, and he spit out a big mouthful of blood. And this scene, it directly detonated the originally silent flower capital. No way, although everyone can't feel the Overlord being killed by Luolei, but you can feel that Shanks' Conqueror's haki has dissipated, and now seeing Shanks' suppressed blood, the fool knows that Shanks lost, or Conqueror's haki confrontation lost. How is this possible? The people at the scene were a little confused, showing disbelieving expressions. Everyone knows that the ancestor of the sea, Luolei, is very strong, and the red-haired Shanks is less fierce than the hard power, but in the confrontation of Conqueror's haki, Shanks actually lost. It's just incredible, isn't it? After all, the redhead Shanks' Conqueror's haki is recognized as the strongest by the sea. Now the red-haired Shanks was shocked and vomited blood. Does that mean that Luolei, the ancestor of the sea who never used Conqueror's haki very much, has a Conqueror's haki that is stronger than the red-haired Shanks? What does this represent? I can't believe it. Even Jin, Quinn, Jack and other beasts pirates are a little horrified. Of course, after the horror, there is a burst of joy and excitement. Defeat the redhead Shanks where he is most proud. Just too cool. Even Conqueror's haki is not the strongest, it depends on how embarrassed you are to ask others to give you a face in the future. Good. Seeing this scene, Luolei nodded very satisfied. After integrating the template of the Peak Motherland, his spiritual power is almost constantly undergoing transformation, so after using the Overlord kill, he can easily mix the spiritual power with the imposing pressure and carry out a double attack. Now it seems, the effect is still very good. All right. In Luolei's view, the effect is only good. But, in the eyes of others, there is a look of shock and disbelief. After all, no one would have imagined that the red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, would be defeated so badly when he used his most proud Conqueror's haki. Quote. Conqueror's haki, as strong as the redhead Shanks, was completely abused. Sure enough, in the face of absolute power, any belief and persistence have no effect. Lei Zhang, Inu Lan, He Song, and Ah Nin, stood on the ruins of the collapsed city tower, their eyes were dazed and sad, their bodies trembled a few times, and they slumped on the ruins. They have given up resistance. After all, with Conqueror's haki being crushed, it's really hard for the red-haired Shanks to beat Lule, the invincible ancestor of the sea. Miracles won't happen. This time, facing the ancestor of the Great Ocean, Lule, their Kozuki clan suffered a crushing defeat. As for why the Straw Hat Pirates didn't respond, they didn't care either. Because, it's too late to react anymore, Wano-kuni has fallen. It seems that I am too naive. Momonosuke, who had been imprisoned by the wooden dragon in midair, had returned to his human form, his expression turned ashes. He was taught a lesson by the Straw Hat Pirates. Spirit, will, and faith will not create any miracles, but will only make people fall worse and more desperate. If he knew it was such an ending, he should have evacuated Wano-kuni earlier. Now that nothing will come, he can only complain desperately here like a waste. Even the red-haired Conqueror's haki got crushed. Yamato climbed out of the rubble and was slapped twice by Lule. Her cheeks were already bloody. She had hope after the red hair came, but now it's alright, the cruel reality is cruel slapped her. What's even more ridiculous is that the Straw Hat Pirates have been silent, as if they have lost contact. Am I really wrong? The next moment, Yamato put his hands on the ground, a look of confusion flashed in his eyes. Is Daddy Kaido good to her? Very good, very good, I almost gave her the best, and I want to train her to become a general of Wano-kuni. But she is extremely rebellious, worships Kozuki Odin, and colludes with the Straw Hat Pirates to be her father. But, even if she is so rebellious, her 6 relatives don't recognize her, and Kaido's father doesn't blame her. Boom. A dull voice sounded. Yamato was paralyzed on the ruins, staring blankly at the blue sky. At this time, in contrast to Momonosuke and the others' despair like a nervous breakdown, Jin, Quinn, Jack and other beasts pirates, as well as those who watched the game, all smiled knowingly. The ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule, did not let them down. The red-haired Shanks after the fiasco of Conqueror's haki was basically a salted fish on the chopping board and was slaughtered by others. It is conceivable that when the news of the red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, fell in Wano-kuni, the sea will definitely set off a stormy wave again. However, just at this time, the red-haired Shanks who vomited a large mouthful of blood was suppressed by the overlord, but suddenly laughed out loud, reached out to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stood up again, making the originally solemn atmosphere a little more relaxed. Your Conqueror's haki is very strong, I lost. The red-haired Shanks pretended to be calm, and said with a free and easy expression, I haven't met such a strong Conqueror's haki for a long time, do you want to have a glass of wine before we fight? After saying this, the red-haired Shanks took out the jug from his waist and drank it with a big mouthful. You do not deserve. Seeing the red-haired Shanks pretending to be relaxed, Lule not only did not feel that the red-haired was informal, but had some disgust and disgust. Dressed up too much. I took the initiative to go to Wano-kuni to find something, and pretended to not care about the White Lotus. I thought I was very free and easy, I had already seen through everything. But it can't change the fact that he wants to be invisible. Not to mention, Lule also has some incomprehensible things. Knowing that he had suppressed the 13 top powerhouses in the sea more than 40 years ago. Needless to say, Blackbeard did not expect him to die peacefully in Nine Snakes Island. A defeated general like Garp would not be afraid of death to challenge him, and the red-haired Shanks also took the initiative to come to his door to send him to his death, participating in the Wano-kuni affair. Perhaps this is their so-called spirit, will, belief and pursuit. Even if you know that there are tigers in the mountains, you must go to the Tiger Mountains. So, I'm sorry, in the face of absolute power, no faith is of any use. Lao Tzu won't be merciful either, he can do whatever he wants, and it's over if he kills him. Facing Luolei's ruthless rejection. The red-haired Shanks' hand holding the jug trembled slightly, his face returned to normal, and the last bit of anticipation in his heart disappeared. From start to finish, Lule and he are not the same person, and will not give him any face. Thinking of this, after the red-haired Shanks drank the wine in the jug, he threw the jug and clenched the hilt of the sword above his waist. The moment he grasped the hilt of the sword, a monstrous sword energy shot straight into the sky, splitting the air in two directly from the middle, making the sky seem to be divided into 2 halves, and virtually affecting Wano-kuni. No doubt, the red-haired Shanks not only has the strongest conquerors, but is also a top swordsman. Laugh. In the next instant, the red-haired Shanks pulled out the sword from his waist violently. With the blessing of Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki, the sword body turned pitch black, and his body flashed and slashed towards Lule. Clap, clap. Perhaps the force of the slash was too strong. The air shattered at the instant of the slash, and the entire Wano-kuni seemed to be unable to bear the sword energy and began to tremble slightly. Finally, when all the power was concentrated on the blade, the red-haired Shanks Griffin slashed towards Lule fiercely. Die dodge. See this scene. Lule shook his head indifferently, and didn't bother to dodge, he just urged Armament Haki to wrap around him. He just wanted to make the red-haired Shanks despair. Not only was the proud Conqueror's Haki crushed, but even the swordsman's slash could not break his body's defense. Why don't you run away? On the other hand, seeing Lule facing his peak slash, he just stood there motionless, which made the red-haired Shanks feel a little unconfident. What's the situation? Wouldn't someone stand there and let him slash? So confident. It's a pity. Whether Shanks believed it or not, Lule did not dodge from the beginning to the end. Soon, when the griffin in his hand hit Lule's body, a monstrous sword light erupted. The slash hit Lule. Clang! A metal crash resounded. The powerful force slashed the ground behind Lule into a ravine, which spread continuously, and finally spread to the sea, leaving a crack on the sea. What? One shot cut through Wano-kuni. Is this the strength of a top swordsman? Looking at the ravine that leads straight to the sea. Now countless people can't help showing a horrified expression. It's a bit outrageous that Shanks' slash is really strong. Of course, after being shocked, he was surprised, because, facing such a terrifying slash, Lule, the ancestor of the sea, did not even take a half step back, and there was no sign of injury on his body. How is this possible? How pervert is such a physical defense? The red-haired Shanks was stunned. He thought of many possibilities, but he didn't think that even Lule's defense could not be broken by his full-strength sword. Conqueror's Haki was crushed, and the swordsman's slash could not break the defense. Invisibly, the red-haired Shanks felt a deep sense of loss and depression in his heart. He is the four emperors. Ha ha. The corners of Lule's mouth twitched slightly, and a crimson light flashed in his eyes, and said, "Redhead, you are really too weak." Boom. The voice did not fall. Lule's body disappeared. The red-haired Shanks' expression changed suddenly, and he subconsciously urged Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki to defend. Unfortunately, it's too late. Today's Lule is almost 10 times the speed of sound, coupled with terrifying power. Click. This is the sound of Griffin exploding. Immediately after, a fist appeared on the chest of the red-haired Shanks. Immediately after, a fist appeared on the chest of the red-haired Shanks. Fast. It seems that the speed is too fast, and there is still some blood left on the fist wrapped by Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki, which is falling to the ground drop by drop. Quiet. In an instant, the place was silent. From the red-haired Shanks slashing Wano-kuni with a sword, to Lule's punch leaving a blood hole in the red-haired Shanks' chest, it took less than a few seconds for many people on the scene to respond. Quote. There's a hole in the redhead Shanks' chest. Failed. The red-haired Shanks, one of the four emperors, also lost to the great ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule. Not long after, one after another uproar resounded. Jin, Quinn, Jack and other beasts pirates, as well as those watching the battle, all showed excited and happy expressions. The ancestor of the sea, Lord Lule won, and Wano-kuni's overall situation has been decided. As for Momonosuke, Leizang, Inuyarashi, Kawasang, Eren, and others, they didn't want to say anything more than their faces were ashen. After all, the miracle did not appear. The ancestors of the sea shattered everything with their absolute strength, fantasy. If Straw Hat Luffy stood in front of them now, they'd just tell him to get out. At this time, in the center of the battle, what a strong body, what a fast speed, what a powerful force. The red-haired Shanks stared blankly at a bloody hole in his chest, showing a bitter smile while horrified. At that moment, his observation Haki couldn't keep up with Lule's speed at all. Even if Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki had already stacked their defenses and Griffin blocked him, it still didn't have any effect. Under the blessing of absolute speed and power, he only felt that something had passed through his chest, and his defense seemed to be a piece of paper. As expected, Lule, who was resurrected more than 40 years later, is no longer the strongest in ninjutsu. The red-haired Shanks felt his fading vitality, and kept spitting blood, and his heart was helpless except for bitterness. The inexplicable wood style, with a body stronger than Kaido of the beasts, comparable to Kizaru's speed, pervert-level strength, eyes that can shoot hot eyes, plus Conqueror's haki stronger than himself. What a terrible monster is this? In the past, just reading the newspapers, he did not experience the horror of the ancestors of the sea, but now he understands that Lule's strength is already a unique existence, and he is already invincible. With a secretly eyeing can Luffy really get the final victory? For a time, always confident redhead Shanks, for the first time, I felt a little unconfident, and I couldn't help but send out a soul-like torture in my heart. Is the decision I made this time really correct? PFF'd. Thinking of this, the red-haired Shanks was depressed, and spit out a mouthful of blood, his body softened and he knelt on the ground. He regretted it, really regretted it. He shouldn't have come to Wano-kuni. Own life. It's too late now, he lost his wife and lost his army. Lule, what are you trying to do? It seems like the light is coming back. The red-haired Shanks vomited blood and said with a painful expression, with your strength, you can actually cooperate with the Straw Hat Pirates, everyone can work together, unify their minds, and jointly overthrow the world government. Cooperation. Lule glanced at Shanks with the eyes of a fool, and said proudly, my ancestors of the sea still need to cooperate with others in doing things. Lao Su can do whatever he wants. After saying this, Lule added indifferently, as long as Wong Luffy dares to come to me for revenge, then I will ruthlessly him at one time. Quote. The red-haired Shanks froze for a moment, opened his mouth to speak, but kept spitting out blood. By the way, we should meet again soon. The next moment, Lule's eyes moved, and he said with some wickedness, how about you say I resurrected you to kill King Luffy? Quote. The red-haired Shanks, who was vomiting blood, seemed to have thought of something, widened his eyes, and looked at Lule as if he were looking at devils and demons. Boom. This is the sound of the body falling to the ground. That's right. Red-haired Shanks took his last breath with a living breath. Quote. Looking at the dead redhead Shanks who can no longer die, Lule shook his head boringly. After integrating the template of the peak Senju Hashirama to 100%, he actually knows how to use the impure world reincarnation developed by second Hokage, but he only uses it in the world of pirates. He really has no idea whether impure world reincarnation can revive people. End. 1. The red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, is dead. It is foreseeable that the sea will shake violently again. Seeing the red-haired Shanks swallowing his last breath, cheers erupted from the scene, and then, the pirates of the Beast's pirates all turned their attention to Momonosuke, who was still imprisoned by the wooden dragon. Redhead is dead. Now it's time to pack General Wano-kuni, Momonosuke. Ha ha ha. Sensing everyone's gazes, Taujisuke's heart was completely broken, as if he was going crazy, and he didn't care about the pain in his body. He laughed and said, Face, I am a waste and garbage, kill me, just kill me. Have your mind completely broken down? Lule frowned and patted his hands lightly, and the wooden dragon turned into white smoke and disappeared. Boom. A dull voice sounded. Momonosuke's body fell to the ground. Ha ha ha. I am the trash general of Wano-kuni, Momonosuke. Liars. They're all liars. I, Momonosuke, won't let them go. After falling to the ground, Momonosuke's whole body was soaked with blood, his face was mad, and he shouted with disheveled hair. When he saw the imperial flag of the Straw Hat Pirates that fell on the ground, he jumped violently. In the past, the imperial flag was torn apart. Are you crazy? Looking at the crazy Momonosuke. Many people at the scene showed boring expressions. This Momonosuke was actually frightened by a series of blows, and it really was the mud that couldn't support the wall. I don't know if you were really crazy or fake. Seeing this scene, Lule stretched Zhao Zhaohao slowly, not bothering to waste time, and said indifferently, you have to die. After hearing this, Momonosuke paused for a moment, and wanted to say something, but found that it was too late. Laugh. A hot sight flew over to the demon. Before he could react, his head was bombarded alive. Why, at the last moment of death, Momonosuke didn't even think about it in his mind, he had already pretended to be crazy, why couldn't he spare his life? No one told Momonosuke why. Because, after Momonosuke was headshot, the entire flower capital erupted with thunderous cheers, and countless civilians who had already been ready for a long time began to happily release lanterns one by one. Ironically, when Kaido of the Beasts was defeated, it seemed to be a lantern. Ha ha ha, I won. We, the Beasts pirates, had the last laugh. Master Kaido, rest in peace. Master Lule has avenged you. With the lift off of lanterns, the flower capital, which is already in ruins, seems to have regained its former prosperity and liveliness. Many Beasts pirates were happy with tears in their eyes, and some of them had already started to kneel on the ground and started to miss Kaido of the Beasts. When the Beasts pirates were defeated by the coalition formed by the Straw Hat Pirates, Kaido's boss also fell into the underground magma. It's good now. After being resurrected, the ancestor of the sea, Lule, brought back all that he had lost. Forget it, I'll give you a surprise in the future. Hearing these voices, Jin hesitated for a while, but in the end he didn't say that even if Lord Kaido dies, Lord Lule can be resurrected. Big news, tomorrow the sea will shake again. Morgans has already put away the camera phone bug in his hand, and next, he will immediately rush the draft to spread everything that happened in Wano. After all, now Wano is being watched by the whole sea. Once his time is slow, other newspapers may seize the opportunity and publish the news first. The concubine is not wrong, Lord Lule is really too strong. Hancock's pretty face showed an expression of amazement. Although he had already seen the death of Blackbeard, one of the 4 emperors, after seeing the death of the red-haired Shanks, who was also one of the 4 emperors, she still couldn't help but be shocked. Killing the 4 emperors is like killing a dog. Maybe it's only Lord Lule. Everything is over, and the defeat is a complete defeat. In the distance, Leizang, Inuyarashi, Hisong, Anan, and Cat Viper, who were paralyzed on the ground, had already accepted their fate. They have devoted most of their lives to the Kozuki family, and now they have returned to before liberation. There was nothing left. Suki was burned to death, Momonosuke died, everything was meaningless. The only time to reassure Cat Viper and Inuyarashi, Garrett had already transferred out of Wano with the furry principality. As the Beasts pirates going to rule Wano again? Yamato climbed up tremblingly. Without his bloody cheeks, he just stared blankly at the lanterns floating in the sky. Familiar scenes, but not familiar people. Maybe she is really wrong. After all, it fell short. Kozuki Hiyori also gave up resistance and squatted on the ground with his hands on his knees and trembling. The tears in his eyes could not be suppressed. Her grandfather actually dedicated him to the ancestors of the sea. Think about it. Kozuki Hiyori has some sadness and ridiculousness. He has done so many things for the Kozuki family, but ended up in such a general ending. That's it. That's it. Is it all just beginning? Hearing these voices, Luolei's eyes flashed with a hint of abuse, and he muttered to himself, World Government, Marine, Straw Hat Pirates, Revolutionary Army, Crusaders, Aokiji Pirates. Quote, I'll drive you utterly crazy. At the same time, under the attention of the major forces in the sea, what happened in Wano could not be concealed at all. When Luole killed the Elephant Master, leaving only a 10,000-meter-high pictographic skeleton, many people in the waters near Wano were horrified. When the red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, broke out the Conqueror's haki, many forces knew that the man with the strongest haki, the red-haired Shanks, also participated in the Wano battle for some reason. Certainly, due to the distance, many people in the waters near Wano only know that Shanks' Conqueror's haki and BJDG swordsmanship were defeated, but they don't know what happened. Therefore, the newspapers of the news of the world were sold out that afternoon. So that what happened in Wano spread throughout the sea in an instant. Shocked, the Elephant Master who has lived for thousands of years was blown up alive, leaving only a pictographic skeleton tens of thousands of meters high. Shocking, the man with the strongest Conqueror's haki turned out to be the ancestor of the sea, Luole. Terrible, red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, was crushed. Despair. If there is a cause, there will be an effect. The Kozuki family was crushed frantically, and General Momonosuke was headshot. Still as shocked as ever. After the news spread to the whole sea, even some numb people who had been shocked by the ancestor of the sea, Luole, still had waves in their hearts and could not calm down at all. It is expected that the ancestors of the sea swept the Kozuki clan of Wano After all, the Straw Hat Pirates have not spoken yet, but the Elephant Master who had lived for thousands of years was bombarded alive, and even the red-haired Shanks with one of the 4 emperors died. Thinking about it, there are still some scalp tingling. Who can stop the ancestors of the sea, Lule? Having the strongest conqueror's haki, stronger than Shanks, how strong is the ancestor of the sea? The world government, marine, Straw Hat Pirates, Crusaders, Aokiji Pirates, Revolutionary Army and other major forces have not responded yet, so should the ancestors of the sea do whatever they want? Accompanied by a series of shocking voices. On the sea, after reading the newspaper, many people couldn't help but show fear and worry in their eyes. Today's ancestor of the sea, Lule, seems to be unmatched. Even the hidden boss of the world government, Yimu, seems to be out of control after one move to destroy a country. If it goes on like this, the ancestors of the sea, Lule, I am afraid that he will become the ancestor who truly stands above the major forces. More importantly, Luolei's character is too unscrupulous, he can do whatever he wants, making everyone have the illusion that the whole world is like the ancestors of the sea. Also on this day, the whole sea once again experienced the fear of being dominated by the ancestors of the sea more than 40 years ago. Holy Land Mariajoy, inside a mighty hockey castle of the world government. At this time, the five elders were standing or sitting, looking at the newspapers in their hands with a heavy expression. They knew that something big would happen when Lule returned to Wano, but they didn't expect that the Elephant Master who had lived for thousands of years was actually smashed alive by Lule, and his flesh and blood turned into rain and scattered all over Wano. What's even more incredible is that the red-haired Shanks didn't know what was going on, but went to Wano and was killed simply and neatly by the ancestors of the sea. Why did the redhead Shanks go to Wano? Conqueror's haki was crushed, and his swordsmanship didn't break Luolei's defense. I'm afraid he didn't take the initiative to send him to death, right? The red-haired Shanks aren't trying to save the Kozuki clan in Wano. Needless to say, the Straw Hat Pirates are now trapped in the future country, Danjian Island. The red-haired Shanks definitely didn't want to watch Wano suffer, so he wanted to fight the Great Ocean Ancestor, but he didn't want to. I didn't expect that the ancestors of the sea were too strong, resulting in stealing chickens and losing rice. Shit beliefs and pursuits, the red-haired Shanks is really naive, and now he's worthless when he dies. The five elders uttered their own voices one by one, and their words were full of disdain and dissatisfaction with the red-haired Shanks, and even more of them snorted and cursed. Joke, they have a secret collaboration with the redhead Shanks. Now that the red-haired Shanks is dead, many of the cooperation things must not be fulfilled, and they can only end without a problem. Also, the identity of the red-haired Shanks is very special. It was Mr. Yimu who personally placed it on the island of Kamiya. Now that it is okay, the red-haired Shanks did not know what was going on. He took the initiative to go to Wano to die for the Straw Hat Pirates. Now what are they going to explain to Lord I Am? All right. In fact, for the real identity of the redhead Shanks, the five elders are not very clear either, but, knowing that the existence of the red-haired Shanks must be of great use. Suffering. This caused another headache for the five elders who were already watching the show. The only thing that makes the five elders happy is that, as the ancestors of the sea become more and more reckless and do whatever they want, they are unscrupulous and there are already threats from the ancestors of the sea. Can they all foresee what will happen next? Feeling the fear of being dominated by the ancestors of the sea, Lule, the ancestor of the sea, will become the target of public criticism, and this is what happened in the sea more than 40 years ago. You said that, Lord, I am not waiting for this moment. A few seconds later, the bald-headed five elders' eyes lit up and said in a surprising voice, when the major forces feel the fear of being dominated by the ancestors, our world government's action may have a multiplier effect. Yup. The blonde five elders exclaimed suddenly, isn't this the case more than 40 years ago? Can we successfully unite all forces to strangle the ancestors of the sea? By the way, destroying the rocks can be described as killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Possible. The bearded five elders exclaimed, is Lord Yim really tall? Lord Yimu's plan is really not something we can guess, it's too far-sighted, and we just don't know if Lord Yimu will repeat the same trick this time. The 5 elders with the highest status in the 5 elders nodded thoughtfully and said meaningfully, no matter what, we can prepare. Redhead Shanks is really a piece of shit. Sudden. Just at this time, with an indifferent voice, the space fluctuated for a moment, and Yimu, who had red pupils, a crown with 4 towering spikes, and a black cloak, appeared in the office of the 5 elders. All the plans were in her expectations. But I never thought that the red-haired Shanks piece would take the initiative to join Wano-kuni's affairs. Now that it's alright, Lule killed him without hesitation, and the value of use is gone. Conqueror's hockey seems to be stronger than it was more than 40 years ago, and it's definitely not as simple as Conqueror's. A look of doubt flashed in Yimu's eyes. Compared with more than 40 years ago, Lule has changed so much now that she still has not figured out Lule's true strength. That man has too many secrets. I really can't figure it out. I am too lazy to think about it. As long as Lule can defeat the captive, everything will be solved, including the resurrection method she has longed to know, why the eyes can shoot heat rays, why wood style is so pervert, etc. Lord I am. In the face of the elusive Lord Yimu, the 5 elders were stunned for a moment, and then without any hesitation, they simply knelt on the ground neatly. Now that the bullets are almost flying, you ask Marine and the CPO to prepare, and I will make a big move soon. I am indifferently ordered. What? Are you going to start? Okay, we got it. The voice did not fall. A ray of excitement appeared on the cheeks of the 5 elders. After enduring it for so long, I can finally bear it. This feeling is really comfortable. Lord 5 elders, in order to be safe, can we do it this time? The bald-headed 5 elders seemed to have thought of something, and asked with some anticipation. Can? Yimu nodded expressionlessly and said, Lule's strength is getting more and more terrifying, and the 5 of you are also ready to take action. Understood. The 5 elders hurriedly clenched their fists. They, who had not done anything for hundreds of years, finally had the opportunity to do it. Next, they would also let the whole sea know the terrifying strength of their 5 elders. By the way, Vegapunk can be removed. The next moment, Yimu said casually, Seraph's technology has matured, and her use value is no longer available. Understood. The 5 elders all showed a cold look. Seraph's production method world government has mastered it. In order to ensure that the technology is not leaked, Vegapunk can only be killed. The only trouble is that Vegapunk seems to have 6 clones, maybe more than that, so the CPO needs to make a good plan. Okay, let's do it. Laugh. Immediately disappeared into the office with a wave of space fluctuations. It's time to act. Good. After I am left, the 5 elders all stood up, looked at each other and could see the smiles in their eyes. Next, we'll enter the showtime of world government. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.